Greetings and blessings to all of you. I greet you with the honor of the infinite creator, the blessings from the universe. I continue to pray for each and every one of you, your friends, your family, all of your relatives, and all of your relations, that they will continue to accept and receive the healing, the knowledge, and the wisdom of the universe. Now, I've been wanting to have this conversation for some time now, and I'm probably going to be throwing lousy remarks about time and timely matters and so forth. But I do honestly believe that it needs to be a discussion that needs to be discussed. Um, Mother Nature, hey, girly, how are you? Cheers to you as well. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Um, anyway, so discussing time. Now, there have been some other people and other channels and so forth that have been bringing up the discussion of time in itself. And so time is relative. Well, let's just start off with some basics. Um, as far as perspective. Now, as a puppeteer and a storyteller, I've traveled to different powwows, and I've done powwows and I've done festivals in Tennessee, in North Carolina, um, South Carolina, and Georgia, all over parts of Alabama. I've been in Florida and several places that I've done puppeteering, and I used to do all the public schools back in the day. Hello, Ian. Morning to you as well. Um, and so I've had the experience of leaving Georgia, heading into Alabama, and you go into a central time zone, then you come back into Eastern time zone. And then if you go on the interstate up towards Nashville, which is where I was heading to middle Georgia, but I was on, I think it's 24. I can't remember. But anyway, it's the highway from Chattanooga to Nashville. And so, but you end up back in the central time zone. Well, sometimes I'd only go there and spend the night and then turn around and come back. Well, it was like, well, I have to get used to this new time zone. So, 20 years ago, I was playing with this in my own head. Like, well, I cross into it's still it in my world, it's still Eastern time. I'm only an hour away from the time zone line, if you will. But the sun goes down instead of 7 o'clock, it goes down at 6 o'clock Central Time. Now, so I had to get used to the fact that, especially in the wintertime when I was up in Tullahoma, Tennessee, at 5:30 it was dark. Well, in South Georgia, it would have been 6:30, but to the point. So at 5:30, everybody's like, their houses are dark. They're in the house. The people aren't nobody's doing anything. They're not driving around town. And it's like they're in bed literally by 8 o'clock, because in their reality on the eastern edge of the central time zone, in that they're like late. Wait, they're on the eastern edge of central time zone. So over here is central, over here is eastern, and they're only separated by a couple of miles. So when I leave this area, I'm still over here, but I cross over, I spend the night, and I come back. So in this other reality, though, in changing times, it's dark at 5:30. So all the people who live in this late late time zone of the Eastern, but the beginning of Central, if you move to the other side of the spectrum, the sun's going down to 6:30. Okay, so, there's that. So, but the people in this Eastern section of the Central time zone have learned to go to bed, at 5:30, 6 o'clock, it's dark. They've had supper, they've had, and depending on where they are, they've watched all the programs. So 10 o'clock their time is 11 o'clock our time, they're in bed. So those of us who might stay up till 12 o'clock or something in the Eastern time zone, blah, 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 their whole schedule, their whole reality has changed because of daylight, regardless of what the time is. If it's 5:30 and it's dark, they learn to live in that area. So their perception of it is different. So I'd cross over and play in it a little bit, if you know what I mean, and then come back home the next day or two. Sometimes I spend 2 days. But in that, I was like, now, isn't this weird? Because just an hour's drive over here, it's 6:30. And everybody's they're a whole hour different. They party later, they go out and have dinner differently. But an hour west, where the time zone is, these folks are at 10 o'clock at night, everything's dead. Everybody's home. They're off the streets. And I mean, and these are in sizable towns. And even on the weekends, it's kind of different. So the whole thought process of time, just in an hour's drive, just like in Tennessee, but crossing over into Alabama, I've done the same thing. I've done puppet shows in Alabama. So I lose an hour or gain an hour, depending on which way you're going. And so it's like, you don't change your clocks. You stick with where you are, but you adjust yourself to the new time for as long as you're there. And then you come back to your time. Now, isn't it the same time? I mean, in reality, I mean, things are going on at the same time. But see, again, this is a simple, a simple kind of little thing for me, because being close enough to the Alabama border. What about Alaska? Yes. And time zones up there. And also the fact, for example, and I'm going to bring that up, Mother Nature. Thank you. No, not just kidding. It brings up a good point that also I wanted to make. But in crossing over the time zones, and I mean just being an hour away out of the Eastern, but the fact that the people who live there, they have modified their behavior. So all of the people who live along this strip before on the eastern edge of the central time zone have modified their behavior until you get to about the west towards Memphis kind of thing. And when you get towards Arkansas, then you get into, it's more like the Eastern time zone, in that people stay up later. It's 11 o'clock when people get out. It's different because of the way the sun goes down and how people react to that. So even within the state of Tennessee, within the middle of the state to the end, there's a difference in how people react because of where the sun goes down at the time of day that it does, which affects their perception of time. Okay. So having crossed back and forth across the borders a few times and have been across several time zones. And so to Mother Nature's point, my brother and I took a trip in 1999 to the West Coast up to Seattle. We went around Mount Rainier and we traveled across, then up into South Dakota, across the Dakotas, Wyoming, turned up into Montana, and went across Montana, Idaho, up through Idaho, and then into Seattle. We stayed there a day or two and around Mount Rainier, and then came down through the Cascades, checking out some of the mountains like Mount Hood and a couple of them along the way. Before then, I didn't know that Mount St. Helens was right there near Mount Rainier. But anyway, and by the way, Mount Rainier's had several earthquakes right around that area. Pretty sizable for that area here just within the last couple of days. So, when I talk about that Mother Earth is, adjusting to all this and the energies, it's going on. So, we need to hang on for the ride. Not to scare anybody, but I keep saying it don't matter where you are on the planet anymore. North Carolina, South Carolina had an earthquake the other day. I warned folks, I said, you're going to see earthquakes even along in South Carolina. And I named a couple of places. Bam, it popped up. You have to check. If you can check 7 right now, you can do it. But if you go to the USGS, for example, and check 7 days, all magnitudes for the US, because it was less than 2.5. So it doesn't show up unless you check that box and look for the last 7 days. But and there was an earthquake in Maine today or yesterday. There was another earthquake up in Canada, up in Quebec. That was a fairly large one, a 2 point something, or maybe even a 3. But, nobody's talking about where these other earthquakes are happening. things are spreading around. I talked to Judge Sense talks about it, but I'm talking about it in deeper senses, especially for the United States, because of what's been going on with the United States and the fact that the slippage hasn't happened along the Mississippi. There's a lot of buildup. There's a lot of different stresses, a lot of different factors going on, and the earthquakes along the Appalachians, and now again on South Carolina, and this ain't the first one. But you have to go back into weird records because they're less than 2.5. So if they're 2.2, but they're consistent in the same spot, you really got to go do your digging to see, oh, wow, this has been going on for some time. It doesn't show up because it's below their realm there, but it's still cumulative. Now, my point to that is that all these earth changes and everything, there are times when I thought I had it nearby. If you look at some of my earlier videos a couple years ago, I did videos and discussions about my house is passive solar, so it faces south all the time. And so when the sun comes up, where the shadow is in my windows is like a solar clock. Okay. So I got the bright idea, and I cut a piece of cardboard that fit in my window. And so that I could mark, I would look on the clock, see what time it was, make a mark, and then see where the shadow was. And I got to noticing on Monday, 9 o'clock would be 9 o'clock. The shadow would match the clock, and everything was within 5 or 10 minutes or so. But, I always gave it this little bit of hedge. But then on Tuesday at 9 o'clock on the clock, it showed 8:30. And I'm like, what? So then I would draw a line the next day, mark it, put it down, and I've got it somewhere written down. But I started watching it, and the next day it would be like 9:30 on the clock before it reached the 9 o'clock position. I'm like, wait a minute. So within 2 days' time, it was slow 30 minutes, and it was fast. Well, actually, it gained an hour. And I started tracking this stuff, and people were like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I know, but you go make your own little, I can't remember what it's called, the solar clock, anyway, it's real easy to do, piece of cardboard and a thing, and so, but I would record, okay, it's 9 o'clock. Where's my line for 9 o'clock? If it was close, I left it alone. But if it was different, and sometimes it was 5 to 10 degrees off in one day from where it was the day before. And I also plotted where the line would be in the evening time. So at 2 o'clock in the evening, it comes in for the sun setting, it comes in the window this way. So I started plotting. Now there's trees over here, and that was a lot more iffy because I had bad shadows. But I got the plot, and in 1 day's time, it went from being late to setting early. So somehow in 1 day's time, the earth had sped up, or the sun had slowed down. Something happened, and there was a time differential in the solar clock versus the clock on the wall. And I don't touch it. I do not. I don't spring forward, and I don't fall back. The clock on the wall back here, right behind me here, is days time. Because I want to be able to, I know when I get on the computer, I know it's an hour different, blah, blah, blah. But I want to keep what I'm observing to my time so I'm consistent. I'm not trying to add or subtract an hour because of what time of year it is. So in my world, my time is an hour behind y'all at Eastern time. And I live in my own time zone because I don't change my clocks. Now I know I have to, if I'm going to be on Brian's show or I want to do something, I have to go by that time zone. Okay. But here at my house, it's that time right there on the wall that doesn't change. I change the battery out, but it's always 5 minutes fast from the top of the hour. But that's my own personal thing, and it's a joke for 25 years. But anyway. But my observations of the sun and the position of the sun on a day-to-day basis over months. And actually, then I carried it into the next year. And then I just got tired of looking at it because it was like, this is nuts. I've got a bay window over here that's in the northeast corner of my house, and the sun's coming up over in that window. It has never come up in that window over there. Not the far. There's one window, a straight window, and another one. Well, this window up here, the sun's coming in. Over here on this side of my house, because I'm facing south, the sun's going down in this one window. I've never seen it gone down before. And it's to the northwest. It's not west, it's northwest window of my house. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Now, I want to go back to what Mother Nature brought up. When we took our trip up north and into the Seattle area and everything, it was 10 o'clock at night, and we were riding around on top of Mount Rainier up there, and it's like bright as day. And I mean, it's 10 o'clock at night. So it's like, for me down south, where the sun is, in Alaska, to your point, Mother Nature, it's the light all the time. In the winter, in the summertime, it's light 24/7. And so when we were driving out of Missouri, going up we drove up the river and into South Dakota. We got up there to a truck stop, and it was like 4 a.m, I think their time. But there was this pre-dawn light in the east, and it was pretty damn bright. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Is the sun coming up? And there was this twilight glow. Now, this is in South Dakota. Sioux Falls, I think, South Dakota. And so, and we stopped to get coffee, and we have some breakfast, before there was an interchange, and we were heading west instead of north. So we stopped in there, and, oh, by the way, when we left Missouri, Kansas City, and Kansas, we drove across the line and came back. There was a tornado. Oh my God. They knew what sweet tea was. We drove into South Dakota several hours later, stopped at the truck stop and asked for sweet tea. And everybody in the whole place, all the truckers were like, you're not from around here, are you? And I was like, what? We just left Missouri. Sweet tea? She brings me a cup, hot water, a tea bag, and a glass of ice, and says the sugar's right there. And I went, what? How many miles did we come? We had leapt into a whole different world of people. Okra, what's that? I'm sorry, we're from the South. Collard greens, huh? No. You can't talk about sweet tea. Sorry, you're not from around here. Just saying. But in that, also in latitude changes, where the sun comes up or doesn't go down. When we were up on Mount Rainier out there, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and it was still it was still bright enough to see. Twilight, but it was still bright enough to see. And at 12 o'clock at night down here, it's pitch black. I don't care what time of the year it is, without all this twilight or whatever. And so as we were leaving Sioux Falls, I think it was, going towards the Badlands, in the rearview mirror, I was driving away, and I kept watching, waiting for the sun to come up. We reached the Columbia River, and the sun still hadn't come up. And I was like, this is nuts. As far as being further north in the summertime, we were up there about the 1st or 2nd of July. So it was right around this time of year. But from my own observation of living down here in the South for a long time, and about as far north as I would go would be like the Tennessee-Kentucky border. Now, I've got relatives in Ohio, and I've been there and was raised there until we moved to Florida as a youngin', but to the point, so I remember being further north, but I hadn't been as far north as I had been on this trip in 99. So anyway, it awakened my whole sense of time, the time changes, how people reacted in these different time zones. Like, for example, the people in the eastern section of Central Time Zone, their whole behavior was different than the folks over in Memphis. The same thing was similar where we traveled every time we reached the edge of one time zone, the folks on the other side of it, just past it, were still kind of linked to these folks, and they changed their behavior. So that's a perspective of time. It's where you sit, it's where the sun is, it's where your reality is. But that's all your perception. Now, let me get into this even more deeply with this. So there are folks out there now, most of us are aware of the Mandela effect. Well, I took a trip up to see my friends the other day, and I went to Tifton, Georgia, to where I worked for 7 years. And I drove up there and back, which is about 50 miles each way. It was about 100 miles easy round trip. So I drove that, up and back once a day, 5 days a week for 7 years. And so I thought I knew that stretch of road. So I'm remembering things because it'd been a couple of years since I'd been up there. And so I'm riding along, looking out the window, and I'm going, wow, that hasn't changed at all, which in my mind should have. But there are other blank spots and stuff. I was like, I thought there was a building there, or wasn't there something, blah, blah, blah. So I got into this town that I'd been through how many times? At least once a day for 5 days, 7 years. And I was like, where the sign, the city limits sign was, and there's a sweet potato factory there, or plant, where they grow them and they package them and everything right there in this little at the edge of this town. And I'd always thought, I swear, that the packaging plant was like about a mile further out of town. So when I go through there last night, the city limits and the packing plant, it's like in its front yard. And I'm like, no, this picture ain't right. I'm sorry. Everything else kind of fits, but that packing plant was further down the hill. I'm sorry, but it's not. Or they didn't move the sign because there were houses right next door. And I was like, wait a minute. Now all of this looks good from the sign down, but where that factory is, where that packing plant is in the wrong freaking place. Now that was just my own little Mandela effect. But there are different things all the time. I go into town and go, what happened to that building over there? And they're like, what building? Well, there used to be a grocery store right there. Now there's just an empty lot. What happened to the grocery store? What are you talking about? The grocery store that used to be there. There was a gas station beside it because they used to pump gas there. And there was a grocery store right beside. I know what happened to the gas. What happened to the grocery store? What grocery store? There hasn't been a grocery store there. And I'm like, now listen. I've lived here 45 years of my life on this property, for 35 of it at least. And so I'm like, no. I'm sorry. I'm having my own Mandela effect here around here. Now, a lot of things are like very similar. They've just gotten older, but they're still in the same general relative spot. But some stuff, the folks are claiming, no, it didn't exist. And I know damn well it did. Because I worked at just one gas station for over a year, and did mechanic work and stuff. And I had a regular job, but I worked overtime on this because I needed money to raise a family. But I used to go over to the store and get groceries before I went home. And so I know it was there anyway. But the Mandela effect has been around, and there are too many things that are like, too many of us are like, that ain't right. Now, there are some things, and I want to kind of bring this up. There are people who say, oh, the car that JFK was in, for example, blah, blah, blah. They forget. Some of the pictures out there only show the back portion of the car. But Senator Connally and his wife were sitting in the middle seat. He was shot by one of the bullets that went through him and around and ended up on the floor without a scratch on it. Senator Connally, and then JFK was behind. So a lot of people, that was wrong, and this, there was another guy in the middle there between the Secret Service. So I'm just saying, there are a lot of people out, well, that didn't happen, and this is wrong, and they added this. Oh, no. Listen, I was a kid. I saw it. I watched Lee Harvey Oswald get shot live on TV there in Dallas that morning before I went to Sunday Mass. So, I witnessed things. We watched it as Catholics. They wouldn't let us leave the living room because of all the things that went on with JFK and Catholics, blah, blah, blah. It was really strange back then. But I lived it. So, but these people try to say, whoa, it was like this. And no, it ain't. Just because you saw a picture and something was clipped or not necessarily Photoshop, but it's the way the angle of the thing and they're showing it, you think that the rest of this didn't exist. Nah, pay attention. So there, some of these claims that I have heard about some of these Mandela effects, to me, they just are misinformed. Now, there are some other things that are similar to that are like, but wait a minute, I will agree with you. I remember it being what you guys remember. And I'm saying that used to be this color, or this spelling used to be like this, or I remember the cover of an album looking like this because I had the damn thing. And now they show me pictures of what album covers or certain things look like. That's not what it looked like. Sorry, I grew up in the 60s. I had albums and blah, blah. They all got burned in the fire that I was in. That the ghost of the house woke me up so we could get out alive. So, but the idea, though, that, that there is this time factor. Now, when they started playing around with CERN, and now they've got this underground facility in Tennessee around Johnstown, up in the northeastern corner of Tennessee. I tried to apply to a place up there, but because I'd been busted for weed and a felon, they wouldn't consider my application as an engineer, even though I had all this experience. Anyway. But I knew back in 2005 that there was some heavy duty stuff going on up there. They just announced that they've got a CERN type device to want to break the veil and break the dimensional veil and into the parallel universe in Tennessee. What? Now, we know there are other things going on, but have they tested it recently? Is that the reason why there was a rash of earthquakes up along on that side up there towards that area? Is that underground testing? And the whatever magnet or whatever they're doing under there, if they're using any kind of accelerator, they're creating vortexes and waves and things. If they're trying to break into another parallel dimension, duh, they're using some kind of something, and they've got the Tennessee Valley Authority, Norris Dam, and all this stored energy up there that they can kind of siphon off from the people. Anyway, that's another story. But the fact that it's going on up there and they announced it, you gotta wonder. So, but with these other things going on, is our time being manipulated? Here's the case in point. The blackout in New York City the other night, 42-year anniversary. It happened on the same date in 1977. And when you look at the numbers, they're like kind of add up to the same. And it's like, hang on. The fact that it happened 42 years later, is that just a mere coincidence? In the same area with the same power substation? Now, are they planning this, or is somebody in the background creating this havoc? Is there a time distortion? There was a blackout on last year in 2012-27-18, I think it was. So that happened in the same area. There was this big blue beam thing in the sky and stuff, and people were like, what the hell's going on? So there's some weird things going on. But the fact that the other day on the 13th, 13, and it happened in 77. There's some magic numbers in there too, but I'm not about that. But is it a coincidence? Is there time manipulation going on? Are they trying to recreate events? Did they try something back then and it didn't work? Are they copying something to try to have a different outcome? Them folk that, their insanity is that you keep doing the same damn thing over and over, expecting a different result. Is this pre-planned? Are they manipulating time? Is this a time distortion? Did this happen back then, or did it happen yesterday but it bounced back to the past? they're messing with all kinds of things. Now, there are many of us who believe, we've gotten information from, I say, our ET sources. I listen to my higher self, and they've been saying, yeah, there are timelines that have been all twisted mess. They have been split. Now, if you think about any kind of wire, or rope, even take rope, that's, there are many pieces of string together, and they're all twisted together. Now, what happens, and it's a nice piece of rope, but if you hold on to that rope and a short piece of it and untwist it, and you see how it starts to bulge and things, it doesn't become it's not a piece of rope anymore. There are strands. There are still tied to the ends, and they're separate, but they're kind of sort of together, but they're not. They're separated because there's this distortion. So maybe the timelines weren't necessarily cut, but there's a lot of weirdness. There's too many Mandela effects, in my opinion, that we have literally switched to a different timeline. There are things back, there are other stuff that I'm convinced we have been swapped to a different timeline. Was the power outage, though, anyway related? Is there some kind of time warp thing on? Did it have to repeat itself? If someone did repeat it for whatever reason, why did they pick all these years? And why the same day on the 13th? Why in July? Why the same substation? Why the same area? You just got to say that can't just be a freaking coincidence. Just my opinion. But to the point, though, even if it was, what a coincidence. Now, I also believe that there are earth energies going on. Now, many of us were not aware of ley lines and things back in 1977. I learned about ley lines when I was in prison in 78 and 79. I started reading up, and thank goodness we had whoever was buying them paperbacks and books and stuff for the library. Oh man, they had stuff on psychokinesis, Russian mysteries behind the Iron Curtain, ley lines. I mean, man, did I get an education. And while I was in prison, and that was just through the prison library. And the guy would ask me, you're into this kind of stuff? And I was like, yeah. So they had a little bit of budget, so they'd go out and buy paperbacks, and then bring them in for the library. Man, they supplied, there was books on magic and witchcraft and blah, blah. I had the whole deal when I was in prison there reading. So, and I've learned since then, and I was in 78 and into 79. So with that said, I've known about some of this stuff for a long time, but in 77, we weren't necessarily aware of ley lines and power points in the earth. Now, I'm going to drag Tesla into this. The Tesla energies and things, he knew there were hot spots on the planet. There were certain places that were better than other places, and he chose them. Now, he divined them however he knew where they were, and a lot of it was through his angel messages, and he talked about it. He kept a pad of paper, much like I do beside my here. When something comes, I do an automatic write, and it comes out, and I ain't really listening. I'm just writing down what they tell me, and then I read it later and go, I wrote that shit. Where'd that come? Okay. But Tesla was the same way, but with what he worked with. Now I've studied this and I've checked it out, and I'm still dabbling in some of this. Earth batteries, for example, low voltage charges. Most of everything in my house is really low voltage. I just paid my electric bill. It was $43.80. That's the highest it's been in 5 months. I mean, last month's bill was $26. So I know how to live frugally, but I had run a couple extra fans. It was extremely hot, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so my light bill was a little bit more, but it was still less than $50. How many people can raise their hand and say, my light bill has been under $50 for the last year? I can't. It might have been 56 one month last year when I was running the heater. But my point, now that's by choice. But the thing is, I got everything I need, and I can use the electricity if I need it. I just don't see the need to have outside lights on. Everything I got solar. I use low voltage, and there. Now, with that said, the Tesla energy, he was tapping into the ether, but by using certain hot points on the earth. And he wanted to broadcast that energy for free. Now, how would you pick that up? Now, I did research many years ago, and there are natural frequencies in the air, and you can go up at different levels. There are people, I would imagine the YouTube videos are still there. People were putting wires up from tree to 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 tree, up as high as they could get it within their boundaries, and literally hooking up a wire on one end and a wire on the other, and they were using all different kinds of wire. But simply where the wire was at a certain height, they were picking up frequencies and actually getting as much as, I think one gentleman got as much as 64 volts DC out of a bunch of wires strung through trees. And I was like, what? There are a lot of people getting consistent 24 volts. They were at least getting enough power to keep a 12-volt battery charged simply by a wire. One guy, literally, he had a fenced-in backyard, privacy fence. He ran the wire along the top of his fence around his house and then back. Had a little solar thing and a little unit out back for his tinkering. And he was able to prove himself. And he used some old cable, just tied it together. I mean, there was nothing anywhere near, twisting wire together, bare wire, and leaving it there. How hard is that? He was using the cable wire, that you use for a cable TV or an antenna, the coated with a solid, right? He was just literally peeling that back and loop and tying two pieces together. I've got some of that that I've been keeping, but he was using that and tying in old antenna wire and just to make the loop around. But he was getting enough to charge batteries. So if we rethink this, here's this energy that's already there, been there all along. Kind of interesting that these new cell towers have these things on them. What if part of it, and they're at a certain height, what if they found a certain frequency that Tesla knew about? And a lot of us have been experimenting with about, antennas in the sky and etheric energy, and so Tesla created that big ball and everything. I believe that he was going to use that through a ley line in the planet, which there's some places up there around New York that he chose, New Jersey, whatever, I can't remember, but up that away versus, Arkansas. But the idea is, so he had located a hotspot, built this thing. I think he wanted to use the Earth's energy at that hotspot and broadcast it. And then we would use antennas. So instead of these power lines that we have strung all over the place, they wouldn't be carrying power. They would actually be acting as antennas. We wouldn't need a power station because at the height that many of these big power transmission lines are already at, they're already at a height that if they were allowed to be used as antennas, could pull energy that's already up there back down to us for nothing. So all around us, all these power lines and everything, some of them, like I said, are at the right height. I mean, even ones in neighborhoods that aren't really high, but they're on poles. All of this, technically, if there was a broadcast signal that they could receive or it was boosted, we could get free energy back just because of the wires being in the air. Period. We wouldn't need anything else. Just the way we'd need the receiver, if you will. Okay. And we would have to, everything would have to change from AC and all this crap. We've got technology that we don't need AC. AC was created because they wouldn't allow Tesla's DC project to work. And I've talked about this before, but it's true. Every single cell phone is DC powered. Everything you plug in, this computer, 19 volts, plugs into an AC outlet, DC power. All of the LED lights now that you screw in, they are DC volts, and so there's a little transducer in there that takes the AC voltage, converts it to DC, so there's a lot of heat right there in the bottom, but then it turns it into a DC LED light. Why don't we just switch over to DC then? Because it's difficult to transmit. So the folks who were backing him back in the day said, listen, this DC shit ain't going to work. We can only transmit at 15 miles. This ain't going to work. So he came up with AC and the big turbines, and he worked with Niagara Falls and all that kind of stuff. And that's where AC was born, because they could transmit it. Mother Nature, you say, what is the difference? Oh, between DC and AC. AC is alternating current. DC, very simply, is direct current. A battery, direct current. It's stored energy, and you get a direct current out of it when you open the field, when you turn on the switch, whatever it is that you're applying. So it's a direct current. Alternating current is what, all these others. I mean, my TV is DC powered once you get inside the box. It takes AC power, goes into a converter right away, and gets transferred into DC power to light the television for all these other things to work. And I've taken the backs off. I play with it anyway. But so direct current. So if you have the right voltage, and like my LCD television, when you get inside it, the highest voltage you get is like 36 volts. That's the highest, and that's DC power. Now there's some transformers and things, and depending on the television, you can up the voltage. It's a really high amperage, blah, 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 to make the screen. But the thing is, the voltage, the highest voltage is only, I take that back. There was, I read some in certain ones, the voltage is as high as 54 volts DC. But the ones that I've looked at, the highest I could see anywhere on the board was 36 volts. So I'm like, so why are we going to all this trouble of, there's energy out on my power lines that go past my house and out here to an empty field. The guy was going to put a little party barn out there, and they didn't have, but the line still goes. There's still live energy going out there to a dead end pole. And the REA was like, somebody might build something down there sometime. That's wasted energy. You're just sitting there humming. I got a big transformer right out here. And, I can go outside at night. And it's me. Now, my brother, I've got a trailer up here that's falling apart that my brother used to live in. And there was the two of us. But still between us, we weren't running three-phase or nothing, but to the point, though, that transformer is still there, and it goes to humming and buzzing, and I'm my meter's barely going around. I'm not burning anything. So it's like there's all this stored energy in all these power lines, and it's like, what if they were antennas instead? So they're generating this energy, keeping the lines ready in case I need some more, and it's all being wasted. All night long, all day long. They charge me more because I use less, because they have to keep the line charged. If I use less, then that means they're actually spending more money on me for nothing, because it's coming down here and I'm only using a tinkle of it. They'd really like for me to use more, because there's all this stored energy in all the power lines. Now, going back to time, what's this got to do with the energy and all? It is tied together, because with all this electricity, with all these with all these energies on the power lines, that they can fluctuate. They can transfer power from this one over here to over there. They can draw energy from this substation to blah, blah, blah. This one goes out, yada, 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 And I've worked in the electrical field around here as an electrician's helper. I've wired houses and buildings and stuff. I worked in Thomasville with some engineering contractors and rewiring buildings and stuff. I worked in the theater with all the lights and sound and all that, and wired all that stuff. So I understand a good bit of this. Now, I'm not a thorough technician. I'm not claiming that, but I know more than the average Joe about some of these things, both in the back of a television set or radio, and also on a higher level from an REA standpoint, because I worked in building construction and that kind of thing. The job I had at Prestolite all had to do with three-phase motors and all this other kind of stuff, timing and all these, and using numerical code to time the machines. So I've got a lot of experience in these things. Anyway, so when I notice these kinds of things and like there are patterns and like, well, what's going on here? Why would you charge me more for the electricity? And then it started dawning on me. But they can change the pulse. They can vary. Like, for example, you're supposed to get 120 volts. Sometimes you get 117. And I mean, that's right out of the box. I put my meter in there and I go here. It's supposed to be 120, 125, 130 if it's good. And I mean, this is in my main box. And I only get 117. Whoa, who's stealing my energy? How come I don't have enough? Now, 115 volts is fine, but that's not what they sell you in the, it's 120 volts, 130 volt, blah, blah, blah. And I go right to the box and go, it ain't my box. All the breakers are good. All this is good. And I'm checking the main wires coming into my house that I put in. It was certified by REA, but I go out there, check the box. The electricity coming into my box outside for the disconnect, it's only got 117. Then where's the power loss? Well, then there are some days I go in and somewhere in the house down the line, I plug in 125 volts. Whoa, it's hot today. For whatever reason, there's more energy in my entire house or even out there on the power pole. So again, how is this tied into time? They're manipulating the voltages. However, they're doing it because that's why I'm discussing this. So in manipulating the voltages over people's heads in their houses, they're creating a greater field or a lesser field. Ain't got necessarily a clue why, although they've got a digital thing on my house and are really pissy about wanting to take it off, but I've got it shielded with some stuff, and but I still got one of them damn digital things on my house. But anyway, they can read it from the road an eighth of a mile up the hill from me. All they got to do is drive by and pick this shit up. What? I took double-backed aluminum foiled hardcore insulation. There's some styrofoam and then there's some with a denser core. And I've taken 2 pieces of that. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different foil backs. And that's between me and the box and my house and concrete wall and other things. But so shielding me, but not shielding their signal, because I don't want to piss these guys off. I've already pissed them off a couple of times. And anyway, what's this got to do with time? If they can manipulate the frequencies, can they manipulate the time? Can they distort our perception of what time is? Because I was discussing the sun's acting up on its own. Do they change the frequencies to to keep people? And I don't want to use the word asleep, but unaware that the sun set a half hour earlier today than yesterday. Well, wait a minute. Most people ain't watching their windows like I am, or watching the sun come up and checking what time it is. But those folks who I have brought awareness to many years ago are like, son of a bitch, yeah, it is happening. I had a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago stop by, and she started saying about this and this, and I said, honey, I live in a passive solar house, right? Well, yeah, because I've known her for 25 years, but she hadn't been here in a while. And I said, well, then that's east, this is south, and that's west. She goes, yeah. And she goes, well, why is the sun setting in that window over there? And I said, exactly, because that's northwest, not west. And I mean way northwest. She goes, the sun's setting in the wrong window. That shouldn't be. And I was like, yep. She goes, well, when I was at Mama's, the sun came up in the wrong window at the house. And I was like, there you go. Now, I do believe that because we are in summertime, the earth always does this rolling thing so that it's more daylight all the time at the North Pole and in the northern regions. However, there's a different flair to it this year. I think it's like we've leaned a little further or something, with the solar eclipse, and now we're going to have a partial lunar eclipse here in a couple of days. I wasn't aware of that. I think I'll go to the river if it's not raining and see what it looks like from the river. There ought to be some really cool energies there. Maybe some cool pictures with the orbs and spirits that come to visit me. But anyway, with that said, though, time distortion. So we've got all these energies affecting us. What about these timelines? Now, I know you all have had this Mandela effect. You know that there's some really strange things. There's some really weird coincidences. Now, could these folks be messing with our time? Maybe it was the way we realized it, but is somebody using, let me throw this out to you. There's a lot of discussion, like Andrew Basiago and a lot of other folks. I ain't going to try to drop a bunch of names, but if you know about him, then you know about the jump seat and time travel and all that. Okay, but there are a lot of other incidents that there are jump rooms. And so that you can walk in this door, go into a room, close the door, walk into the next, and you're in another time, another dimension, or at least another time zone. What if, to screw with us, they're doing time jumps back and changing the word of the Berenstain Bears, or changing? There was several videos, probably about a year or so ago, about the color of the Chase Manhattan Bank in one of these large cities, and the lady took photographs of it, and it was changing midstream. She went in and talked to the manager and said, "What color is your sign outside?" And she goes, "Well, blue, of course." And the lady said, "No, look." And you could look through the window and the reflection at the building across the street, and it wasn't blue. The color had changed. And the people in the bank were like, "What? When did the color of our sign change?" They didn't change the sign, but the color changed and the way it looked. And it was like, what the hell? Now, to me, that suggests I'm bringing up some of these past events as what is fueling this discussion about the timelines. If all these energies and these folks can manipulate energies in the wires, which I was just talking about, that they've got all these cell phone towers at certain heights, in riding around the country the last couple of days visiting friends, I'm noticing all these other cell towers I didn't notice before. My God, there's a crap load of them down here. I don't mean just a couple. There's not many of us down here, but there are a crap load of towers, huge power plants, and I'm talking about regular cell phone towers and also the 5G kind of towers. And I'm like, this is the country down here. It's fairly sparsely. There's, like maybe 35,000 people in the whole county. 40% of them live really close to Moultrie, and the rest of them are, separated out. And there's two other small towns in Colquitt County. So their small population is 350, 400, blah, blah, blah. They make, but the rest of the Colquitt counties, just kind of dispersed and, separated. There are a couple of neighborhoods, but it's mostly spread out, a lot of farmland. So why are there all these towers out here? There ain't that many of us that need a signal out here. I mean, there's just not. So I'm like, well, that's really nice and everything, but we already had enough towers. When I did have a cell phone, I could choose which tower I could get the best signal from when I asked my carrier, and found out that there's two towers that I know had been there for a long time. That's why I could tell the lady over near Meg's on Highway 19. I was like, look, you're trying to give me a tower and I got a hill in front of me. Give me a tower that's this way from me, to the west, because I've got a clear signal. I'm sitting at the bottom of a hill, so I can't get anything this way. They switched towers. I had good signal right here in the house. I didn't even have to go out in the yard. And I'm like, see? So they can manipulate these energies. Being a radio disc jockey and working in AM and FM radio, I realized a long time ago, AM radio stations there's several of them around here that are now closed, but they sit on wet spots. The antennas, and some of them, there are 4 different antennas, and they use them as directional. So what happens is when you get a certain frequency, the FCC allows you a certain area, and you fine tune that with the antennas and the array and all this other stuff. But they use AM radio. They use AM in the mountains because it uses Earth's energy and the sky. When I was a Boy Scout in Tampa, I could use a crystal radio that I built, a tent stake, a steel tent stake, and a piece of antenna wire sticking out the top of my tent, and I could listen to WLS in Chicago, because the AM station was bouncing off the atmosphere, but because of the grounding of Mother Earth, Earth was also helping me to receive, so I could listen to Chicago. WLS Chicago back in the day. And I was like, wow, people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm listening to Chicago on the radio. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Here, listen. Oh, holy crap. But we, back in the day, there were those of us who used to, you could send in a postcard to WLS, for example, or one of these big stations. Another one was around Louisiana, Baton Rouge. There's another one over there, Slidell, Louisiana. And so anyway, the trucker station. So late at night, if you can't pick anything up on FM because, whatever, you can switch to AM and hear shit from all over the place. And at nighttime, a lot of stations close down. And so there may be a station that's limited in the daytime. And it's not that they're broadcasting any further. It's the fact that the atmosphere, because there's less other AM stations on, you're able to hear them over the frequencies. It opens up the air. They don't transmit any faster. In fact, most AM stations that I worked at, after 6 at sundown, you had to power down. So we might go from 1,000 kilowatts or, to 500. I mean, like literally cut it in half. And so people on the fringes, they'd know, they're like, shit, there goes WMTM. AM's got to power down for the evening and until 12 o'clock where they had to sign off. That was what the FCC did. But my point to that is though they could literally change. It wasn't just like a round circle that the radio waves go out from these towers. They can manipulate it to where it comes around a curve and goes this way. Another radio station from Douglas is coming in and they're on a fringe area. So these guys tune theirs and these guys tune theirs so they don't crisscross. You lose one and gain the other one. So they don't mismatch. Sometimes you can pick them both up, like driving up the interstate, you lose one station, pick up another. But these guys can fine tune this, and the FCC goes around with meters and checks this stuff. Now, why am I discussing this having to do with time? They've been manipulating this ever since they found out about radio waves. So why can't they manipulate other things? It's all within the realm of reality. I don't have to speculate whether or not they can alter these radio frequencies. I already know that they do. All the FM stations, they've all got their boundaries. And as one of the assistant engineer, I used to do a ride along. We'd go out to the tower, check the rolls, blah, blah, blah. And then we'd ride around the fringe area and do meter readings. And if it was too high at a certain point, there were certain places on the map, they would always go to this spot and take a reading. And the FCC would go to the same damn spot and check the reading. And if it was off, you had to go back to the transmitter, adjust the fine tuning where it was going, go back out and check that reading. So they're doing it every day with regular radio. So why aren't they doing it with other stuff? What's with all the cell towers? Are they manipulating our perception of what time is? Well, they think it's this time and we're all this. It's part of the chaos. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily programming, but I absolutely believe that it is a subtle programming because they can manipulate these frequencies. And because each one of us are susceptible, one way or the other, to frequencies, magnetical changes. So the Earth's doing this number to us, which in a perspective, if the magnetosphere shrinks and everything gets compressed, does the time get compressed with it? Because it's all relative to how we perceive things. Now, time. E equals mc squared. E equals energy times the mass times the constant squared. Energy equals mass constant. The constant, normally, in this particular equation, is supposed to be the speed of light. Now, the speed of light is an average because they realized in their studies in this that the experiment can be not necessarily manipulated, but can be altered by the observer. There's a name for it. I forget it all the time. But in that, so everyone who did the test for the speed of light, their observation was different, although they, tried, excuse me, a little bit of, they try honestly to duplicate the exact circumstances, but they've already proven that that can be, quote, manipulated by the observers of the experiment in all different kinds, not just the speed of light, but in all kinds of areas. So they've done the split screen thing where they send a round beam and they cut half of it off. But on the other end, where there's supposed to be light, there's a shadow beam. It should be dark, but it's lit. And it's like, well, wait a minute, is the light going through it? Well, or is the light pretending that it's there? It knows the beam is a round beam until it gets to here, and then it gets split. But what's showing up on the wall is a definite half circle, but the other circle's not dark. It's partially lit. Well, wait a minute, I didn't think any of the light was getting through. So that's a distortion of our eyes. It's also a distortion of time, because now what's supposed to be a constant ain't a constant all of a sudden. All of those parameters have just now changed. And our observation of those experiments also has a factor. Now, is that because our perception of the time? There is time in it because that's one of the things. It's time. As an engineer, and I studied physics, I got physics books and calculus and all that kind of stuff, stress and strength, and time is a big factor. You shoot something up, how long does it take? The time is a big deal. But what is your perception of time? Is it your perception of time on the eastern edge of the central time zone where it's dark at 5:30? Or is it is it central time zone on the western edge and where at 6:30 it's still light? I'm just saying. Having traveled time zones myself and having traveled latitudes and time zones, having observed the earth and all these things physically from a standpoint, now it's from my perspective. Now other people saw it too. I was like, asked one trucker, I said, is that the sun coming up? And he was like, nah, that's pre-dawn. It'll last for a couple hours. The sun don't come up till like 6:30. And I'm like, it's only 4:30. He goes, yeah, I know, it's like that in the summer up here. Okay. But you don't get that down here in the South. I mean, when I grew up in Florida, at certain times, regardless of where the sun was, the sun went down basically the same time at those times a year. So, but the perception of it. So now I can sit here and say, okay, I understand what it's like in Tampa and what the sky looked like and my perception of time. I'm living here now, but at the same time, I can remember what Seattle was like. And if you will, project myself back onto Mount Rainier and feel that it's still probably, well, it's 5:30 in the morning now here, but my perspective of where the sun is and how light it is and what this, you know, it's all different. But it's the same day, isn't it? It's the same time, but it's relative to where we are. So now I'm going to expand this. Now, just using now, what if you go up in space? What about space? Well, there's a lot of differential. Well, okay, flat Earth. We're not going there. Let's just keep the solar system basically like it's supposed to be, round objects in different orbits. We'll leave it at that. If you've got a planet the size of Jupiter, is time the same on planet Jupiter as it is the same here on Earth? Well, it can't be. Why? Because the physical dimensions are 10 times larger or 100, whatever it is, much bigger. It rotates slower. So one day facing the Earth, facing the sun, is going to take a crap load longer from our point of view here on Earth. One day up there, it takes that big ass planet to turn around, right? So to that, it's like, well, think of how long their nights are then in that respect. Oh, holy crap. It's like for days for us, for them, it's just half a day. It's just nighttime. So on Mars, it's smaller. I think it rotates a little faster. I'm not quite sure on that, but to the point, being that it's a little smaller, it would have a tendency to just rotate slightly faster. Maybe slower, but still. But the time on that planet, simply because it's a little smaller in the way it rotates, etc., its time's going to be different as well because it's smaller. So when you go further north, it's a smaller planet. So looking at the sun and having the same effect of when I went north and what the Arctic Circle and what the Inuits are looking at, blah, 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 land of the midnight sun. That's what I was trying to remember earlier. So, but now if you go to Mars and if you traveled that same distance, you'd have went over the pole and down the other side. So time has to be different simply because of the physical components of the different planets. So our perspective of time right now is, we always call it linear. But if you believe that the Earth is a globe, like I am, more or less, then it's not linear, it's circular. Because there are folks, that do those cruises. They have Happy New Year on this side, then they cross the international date line and they do Happy New Year all over again. So it's the same day, but is it? It depends on where you are on the planet. So there's just a simple, hey, we agree, this is the line. It's this time over here and it's this time over here. So somebody's arguing outside. That's not good. Anyway, I got some hungry foxes around here, and I think one of my kittens was eaten by one of the foxes, and it sounds like one of them's trying to defend themselves from something right now. But anyway, I just let Mother Nature take its course. Anyway, a fox is a fox. I do feed them though out there. I put extra food out to try to feed the foxes. Anyway, back to this time distortion thing or whatever. So I've already noted from my own observations that somehow the orbit is wobbling. The last full moon, the moon was really low in the sky. I'd reported before in my Earth wobble updates that for several full moons in a row, the moon was straight overhead. Now it's not. Full moon is now down over, 40 degrees, 45 degrees south of overhead, So it's like in a totally different place. But now, is it the moon or is it us? Are we rotating, wobbling enough like this? I say it's a combination. I say the Earth wobble is causing the moon to fluctuate with us. So it has a lot to do with its time distortion, because there's energies with the moon we all agree about that do affect us. So if the moon is pulsating and trying to keep up with the Earth's wobble, and so that its energetic timelines, because of where it is position wise up and down, and maybe even this way, our position with rolling back and forth and doing the big wobble, that's affecting the magnetics. It's also affecting our perception of time. So what about the rest of the universe? If these guys are trying to break into parallel dimensions, and now in Tennessee, not just CERN, and there are other places that we're going to hear about. They've been building these things for a while. Now they're going to come online. You got to ask the question very simply, why? Why do they want to do it? Well, we want to. Why do you want to break into another dimension? I'm sorry. Curiosity killed the cat. So y'all a bunch of meow mofos, but you want to drag the rest of the planet along with your curiosity. I'm sorry. I think I have a little bit more sense than should we be tinkering with that shit at all? Now, looking for the God particle and all this kind of stuff, and jamming protons together to see how they react. That, as long as they're not trying to blow into another universe, I understand that you want to find out how things react. What is your intent with it? Well, let's see what happens. You take a lead particle and a gold particle, slam them together at a high speed, and find out what happens. Well, you might end the planet, but okay, let's see what. But if your intent is to open a portal, if that is your intent to begin with, you have prior information about something that will get them there. How do they know that what they're designing is supposed to do what they're claiming they want to do? What science have they developed that we're not privy to that gives them the design to build this machine in Tennessee? The idea, who gave them the thought to build CERN? How deep, how this, blah, 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 all that shit was planned. And it was built on a high energy spot over there. Same thing with Tennessee. I've been up in the Appalachians along in there. There's some really cool energy up there. Have they found a hot spot up there? They're fixing to turn on a machine, if they haven't already. But why do they want to peek into a parallel dimension? I think they've already tinkered with time because of the Mandela effect, because of the weird things. And there are some of us who wake up and go, I reported on this about a year or so ago. I woke up and I looked out the window and it was like everything looked the same, but it wasn't. The colors were all off. And then the next day that was like back to normal. And I was like, what was that all about? What just happened? And I have seen things like transpire, looking out the window, everything's normal. And then all of a sudden there's like this flicker in between and something happens and it's a time shift. And I look outside and the moon and the light's different. The shade of the green on the trees has changed. Oh, what the F just happened? Now it has slowed down here recently to what it's been, I don't know, I'll say the last year, but it is still occurring. I've had instances when I went to the river and I've talked about them in other videos, but the energies and the things and, like the orb pictures, there was this one entity that appeared in front of me. There was smoke 25, 30 feet away, blowing in the opposite direction. But the pictures that I took in a couple in a row, there was smoke in front of me. I still don't know where it came from. And this entity, maybe even two of them, appeared in this smoke and allowed me to take its picture. That's just some creepy shit, period. These are other parallel dimensions that we're already breaking through the veil. If these things are manifesting themselves, and I mean, you look at the picture yourself. I did a video on it. There's some strange shit in them pictures. And I'm like, it's okay. Now, there was only when that cloud assembled in front of me, I felt creepy then. But the rest of the orbs and everything, not bothered. But I'm still bothered by whatever the hell that was, that column of smoke that appeared in front of me. That just shouldn't have happened. Anyway, but I think that in my shaman training, in my, because I don't think about time when I go do ceremonies or I go speak to the spirits or anything like that. When I go with Mother Nature, by the way, thank you, darling. When I go and tune into Mother Nature, time just kind of stands still. Now, a specified time will go by. I'll go look at my clock in my truck or something, but I don't carry a watch. I'm not interested. If the sun's coming up, I know it. I kind of know what time it is. But in that respect, I don't look at a clock to say, well, how much time has passed? Was it 45 minutes? Now, with my camera, it does show me the time that the picture was taken, but I usually don't have my glasses on, and I try not to focus on what's on the camera. I just go, oh, I need to take another one there, or move. So, but I don't try to look at the pictures while I'm taking them. It's like a distraction. I try to stay tuned into the spirits. Anyway, what's that got to do with time? Because there are times when it feels like an hour and it's been 4. There are other times when it feels like it's been 4 hours. I'll go to my truck and look and I'll go, it's only 2 o'clock. It should be 4, or, vice versa. So, and all I'm doing is going down to the river, on the beach, blah, blah, blah. But what seems like a certain period of time in my head, when I go check at 2 o'clock, they don't jive. And sometimes I'm like, I'm pretty close. I've talked about, if you want to learn how to use your astral self, how to project yourself, and I'll give, it's a really simple technique. Pick a clock that you look at all the time. Easy, whether it be numbers or hands on a clock. What you do is you focus on it. So you want to know what time it is? Close your eyes. Don't guess what time it is, but just picture that clock in your head and read what time it is. I've done this with several friends, and they've been practicing and trying it. So they're like, holy cow, I can get within 5 minutes easy, no matter where I am, if I just look at the clock. But when I'm down on the river and stuff, I'm not necessarily tuning in. But what you do is you don't try to guess the time. Don't look. Don't try to surmise. Just close your eyes. Look at let the picture of the clock get into your third eye kind of deal. I mean, anymore, I don't even have to close my eyes. The picture just kind of, it's like I got an invisible screen between me and the rest of the world, and things come up here like on a display. It's really kind of weird. But I've noticed there's been some movies where you see these idiot savants that are like doing these numbers in the sky, and in their mind they can see all these patterns. It's similar to me, because when I design machines and stuff, I would throw this picture up and go, well, this fits there and this is like this, and I would use this invisible screen to kind of sort of do the same thing. So, but anyway, that's how we perceive things, and time distortions and so forth. Anyway, so now what if these guys with all this towers and all this stuff and all these other things, that's their vehicle for manipulating the time factor, for changing the timelines, for altering our perception of what it was. Was the Bernstein Bears spelled one way? Did they go back in time and change it in one instance so that it moved the timeline? So we all look back down it and go, what? The Chase Manhattan, the Chase sign changing from a bright blue to like a dark, a navy blue. What? Logos being altered, pictures being taken and going, wait a minute, that wasn't the same thing. You know what I mean? We've all experienced something in our own realities. That's a point. So my point, so if I'm on Jupiter one day, ain't the same as Earth, but we're still existing in the same universe at the same time, if you will. So the only thing that is different is the distance, which is part of a lot of general equations in physics: distance, time, energy, mass, force. Okay. So keeping that in mind, um, with all these power lines and all these energies that they're pulsating, have they changed our timeline? Have they sent somebody back through the jump room to alter a piece of time that has kind of fluctuated and moved on down to now? Can they do it? Is it possible? Well, they designed CERN, guess what? To try to peer into another universe. What's this thing in Tennessee? What did they come right out with and say? They want to see if they can peer into another dimension, a parallel dimension. Why? Okay. Second, and I mentioned this earlier, but I want to kind of go back into this a little. As an engineer, when you design a piece of machinery, you got to have a basic understanding of like machining, tooling, how certain effects are going to happen, how motors work, how many windings you need to get the generated effects. I mean, there's a lot of shit. And then all these things have to be machined so that they fit perfectly together to operate at these high speeds, because a little bit of something out of balance can whack things up big time. And so when you're running at 32,000 RPM, because when I worked with jet engines and blades and things, we had certain tests we had to run on blades to stress them out before we sent them out. We had to test so many pieces as per. And one of them was like spin them in a centrifuge to see if they were like anything was wrong with the titanium bond or anything like that, the castings. So anyway, but the idea though that, you get something high speed that isn't balanced, that bitch is coming apart quick. That's why jet engines will disintegrate. One piece gets broke, and that thing, it's not that the whole thing is faulty, it's that it goes out of balance and wrecks the rest of all the other stages that are all timed together perfectly too, and they bang into the housing. But to the point that all that has to be perfectly aligned, machined, and you got to know what you're doing before you build the damn thing. So what about this time portal thing, whatever they're trying to do in Tennessee? They have to have a lot of basic information about whether or not it's even possible before they even begin the design. You can't just say, well, we're gonna break into a parallel universe. Okay, how are we gonna do it? Well, I don't know. We're gonna need a big ass motor. Okay, we're gonna need a crap load of energy, we think. Well, how are we gonna get there? Well, I don't know. We're gonna spin it. We're gonna twirl it. What are we gonna do? Well, I don't know. So you know what I mean? So these guys sat down and they discussed this. Where'd they get the basic idea? Now, I'm going to say right out, ET. They got help from somebody to give them an initial design to even try to do what they do. Somebody, they didn't just whack up on their own and decide to build this big ass mofo under the ground to peek into a parallel universe without knowing something about how to go about it and how to do it. Do you hear what I'm talking about? Somebody's got a lot of previous knowledge in engineering, wiring, all of the physics involved. Yes, there's a lot of theories and stuff, but somebody had an original something for these guys to work with. They had to. As an engineer, somebody gives me a problem, we need to have this done. I have to rely upon my prior experience to say, well, I'm going to need something to hold it with. It's going to need to be sturdy, but light. It needs to fit certain criteria. So I use information that I've already learned to build what these folks want me to design for their machines, to do whatever it is they do. I'm going to use prior knowledge, myself and others, to get what they want. So If they're trying to peek into another universe, somebody had a machine somewhere. Small, I don't care. Somebody knows something for them to be able to build this thing to begin with. And on the scale that they're doing it, oh my God, somebody's done this. You understand? They've already done this, but on a little tiny scale. Or they failed maybe in CERN, and this is their backup plan. But now their backup plan in Tennessee, I got to say, has been going on since 2005 when they started recruiting people to go move up there and to work on those underground government places, because I applied to some of those jobs. I figured, well, maybe they got something on the outside. Maybe they just need a draftsman or something. I don't, that you got some stuff, you need changes on a drawing. I can do that. I'm really good at that and quick. Boom, back in the system, blah, blah, blah. Nope. Mm-mm. And they were strict about it. They were accepting bachelor's degree with 10 years experience at a starting position. What? Or a master's degree in engineering or whatever the field with at least 5 years experience. That's not easy to come by. And it had to be in certain fields. So these, I knew something was going on since 2005. I was just kind of wondering if it'd ever show up. Dun, da, da, dun, here we are. But somebody had to know how to do something to get there, for them to even start the drawings, the concept. They had to have had a basic, somebody showed them something, don't know where, don't know how, that they could build this and they could possibly achieve what they want. This ain't just pure speculation. This ain't just a couple of guys going, oh, we think this might work. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a lot more to this. Now, have they tinkered with time because of CERN? We know about a year or so ago, there was some whacked out, crazy ass shit going on when CERN was logged on. Holy crap. Now, I'm very curious as to whether or not CERN didn't have a lot to do with how the Earth started wobbling. I think CERN, with all their high megawatts and every gigawatts, gazillion watts, quadruple watt, they were using crap loads of energy in a magnetic kind of swirling effect. I think CERN woke up Mother Earth. Whether they were trying to achieve a portal, did or didn't, that's not my point. I think CERN woke Mother Earth up in a way they didn't expect. Because since they shut CERN down, we've actually had more earthquakes, more plate tectonics, more crazy stuff in the last 2 years. Just in the last 6 months. I mean, California's still going off. I mean, it hasn't slowed down. It's popping them off. And they had a couple of threes today, and I think another 4 down in California. There was a 4 that hit Montana. This stuff's spreading out, And so the idea, though, did CERN open another portal? I don't know. Some weird shit happened. But I absolutely believe, and I see you guys are agreeing, what else could have started this massive, and there were 6 or 7 earthquakes today, early this morning into the afternoon. Italy, Greece, I think there was one in Russia, up in Alaska, and they were all above 4 points. And there was the big ones down in Indonesia. There have been 2 that down in Australia that hit. So, there's some stuff going on this planet. Did CERN start it? Was it the magnet, the flow? If you can run current through a winding one way, you will set up a field in one way. If you take the electricity, run it back through the same coil, but the opposite direction, you're going to reverse that field. That's how you reverse a motor kind of thing. You change the field. It's the same motor. You just reverse which way the electricity's going through the windings as to which way it goes. Okay. So now if they know that if you turn something, I'm just going to use clockwise is a positive energy. Counterclockwise is negative. Not saying it is, but if they were to run something in one direction at a high enough speed with enough, and there's all this power around it to keep these little beams tight and all this other kind of stuff, there's all this magnetism. It's got to affect something. If they're being able to hold tiny particles at tremendous speeds in a tight pattern so they can collide them, you bet your bippy them sons of bitches are accurate. And they're putting out a bunch of energy. So I think they broke something in a way. I think they started a chain reaction of events since then. Now, things were really active back when CERN was on, but since it's been off, and it's been really quiet over there because they needed to upgrade some machinery that literally got fried, and those things ain't cheap and they ain't easy to build. And because of the machining, as a machinist, I know them big ass things, they're tough to do. And and the tolerances they gotta hold are just absolutely phenomenal. If you know what 0.003 of an inch is, that's like 1/3 the size of a human hair. A human hair is between 9 and 12 thousandths if you use a micrometer. But the thing is, so you're talking about 0.003 tolerance on a big ass machine that's 20 foot tall, 1/3 the size of a human hair, and they have to be that accurate. That ain't easy to do. So, but to my point about that though, they just don't whoop one of these things up. Yeah, it takes time. They got to know the machinists have to know what they do. The people who manufacture what these people want, they have to build machines to build the machine to do what they want. I mean, if we got an order to build something, we had to make a jig, and that was built into the cost of the overall cost of developing the product. But you had to build a jig. In other words, if you want a piece of pipe bent and you wanted it consistently, you built a jig, and then you fixed the jig until you got it right. And then you built a bunch of prototypes using the jig. You took that to the manufacturer and said, okay, what do you think about this one? Oh, that works pretty good. So now you take the jig and then you turn it into what you want, to the actual working model. You don't spend a bunch of money on building something and you go, shit, it don't work. No, you use prototypes and jig. Sometimes we used to build stuff out of plywood just to see if it would work, because all we needed to do was test the basic design. And if we got the angles pretty well right, then we'd go ahead and commit to $1,000 worth of tool steel, heat treatment and machining and all that kind of stuff to get the desired thing. But sometimes a piece of plywood was what you used to work some of these things out. I mean, or a 2x4 in the machine shop, we were cutting stuff up and blocking things and super gluing them together, kind of thing, just to see. And then we'd get it. Well, okay, now we can build it. So it was a mock-up design. So my point to that is, these guys didn't just come up with this. They had to have prior information. And I absolutely believe that it's ET related. Not necessarily the good guys neither. You know what I mean? Because the good guys and everything that I've been in touch with, we already know how to go into other dimensions. We already know how to skip into a parallel universe. The fact is, we ain't got no business doing it. I ain't got no business in going into anybody else's reality and messing with their stuff. You know what I mean? So the idea, this goes back to folks wanting to, conjure a spirit conjuring, and let's invoke some angel or something, and when they ain't got a clue who their own angel is. This is like absurdity on top of absurdness. But so you have to understand certain basics and follow certain protocol. You just don't go out there and jump into this mess. You got to know prior information. You have to have prior experience, something. I think the bad ETs have a lot to do with this and gave him the idea, and these guys have got it in their freaking head that piercing the veil into another parallel universe is a really good idea. My spiritual guides are going, these folks are nuts. You don't need to be poking into other places. Need to stay out of that. We ain't got to know if the good Lord wanted us to go into a parallel universe, he'd have gave us a door. Now there are portals and there are other ways, but for these guys to be creating machines to do this in Tennessee is highly suspicious, in my opinion. And I know you all agree. But still, I want to back up from what are they doing. I want to go back. I know from 2005 it was heavy duty. How long before that? They've been planning this a while. They didn't just come up with this. All the engineers, all the drawings, all the machining. Who did all the machining? There are factories somewhere that had to build special machines to build the machine that they're going to use. It's what you do in manufacturing. You got to have something to hold what you're going to make. You got to have a machine big enough to machine the thing you want to get machined. Yeah, there's processes you just can't avoid. And when you got to hold a tolerance half the size of a human hair, you got to have your stuff together. So there are a bunch of folks somewhere that have been doing some really big things with some really big and accurate machines. And getting accuracy on big machines is really freaking tough. But they're doing it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's very difficult to hold tolerances. When you start getting bigger, you start getting, there were things that I used to measure, and we had to take them into a controlled room with the temperature set. And we had to take them at 10 o'clock in the morning, right after lunch at 1 o'clock, and again at about 4 o'clock before we clocked out. Why? Because that same piece of metal that all you did was bring it into the room and measure it. You had to measure it with laser devices and things to make sure the angles and all the curves are right. These were high-speed turbine blades for Rolls-Royce and Pratt & Whitney, and we built a lot of different models of blades to go in jet engines. Anyway, but the temperature. So at 10 o'clock in the morning, it would read one way. After lunch, it would read slightly different. And by the end of the day, it read a totally different way. And it was the fact that the metal had to settle into the temperature of the room. So you took 3 readings to get an average to see how much distortion was in there by simply taking it into a controlled temperature room to find out its own deflection, its own warpage. Now, and that's on a little blade about this big and blah, blah, made out of titanium. Now you're talking about some of these things are 20, 30 feet tall, and they have to be measured with a laser. They have to be accurate within that minuted. Well, Bob's giving me trouble. Am I still live? I noticed I got jiggled there. There's some, they don't like me talking about this stuff, but it's the truth. They had to have machines that were accurate enough to make the machines to build the machines. Wow, it's jumping really bad on my end for whatever reason. Anyway, but so I don't want to be long-winded about this, but there's so much that has to be done. So they've known about being able to manipulate things because otherwise they wouldn't have a basic design, is my point. So have they? The Mandela effect and all these other things have a tendency to prove so. the wobbling of the earth with messing around with CERN and its magnetics. Thank you very much, Mother Nature. And we've all seen the wobble. We've all witnessed these things. So these are actual events that are happening. They're changing our perception of other. When I talk to other people about it, they go, "Well, I kind of thought it was weird that the sun was in that window," but then that's as far as it goes. So in their reality, it's impossible that the earth is wobbling. It's impossible that the earth changes almost on a daily basis, where the sun comes up an hour early or half hour later. I mean, I saw as much almost 2 years ago when CERN was running, by the way, there was about an hour and a half difference from a sunrise. It was like 10 o'clock and it was on the clock, but it was only 8:30 on my window clock. I'm like, no, that's a long way off. I freaked out that day. I might even have done a video. But so to the point, our observations, we're being lied to because they're obfuscating these things. So they're altering our perception of what the current time is. So which side of the line are you on? Are you on this side of Eastern Daylight or are you in Central? Well, it's dark at 5:30. It's dark at 6:30, 2 miles away from each other. Different realities, slightly different time. But if you're looking at from the standpoint of where the sun is, sun-wise, they're both at the same time. So you've got 3 different perspectives of time, just with the time zone differential and living within a couple of miles of it, and how that affects the people who live there. Take it to a grander scale. If our planet's slowing down and speeding up, is that somehow altering our time going through the universe, our time with the galactic center, or we've got the central zone of the universe, and we're having a tendency to come up into the swing and then we'll swing back down. So we've been below the ecliptic of the Milky Way for a long time, and now we're supposedly through it. We're not through it. That's why all these more asteroids, there's all these other exoplanets, plus what a lot of these people are calling exoplanets are clearly not exoplanets. When a year ago or so, when I talked about the moons around Saturn, there are a couple of them that disappeared. Moons don't move out of orbits of planets the size of Saturn. Nah. And they just don't haphazardly, oh my God, we've got 79 of them. Well, there was 81, but we lost a couple. Come on, guys. These are the motherships that many of us were told about, dreamed about, spoke about a lot of different areas way back in the 1990s. Some of us in the 1980s. Expect things to appear in the outer edges of the solar system was what I heard. Expect we've got help coming in. Okay. Now, back then, we didn't have all these satellites, but now you can see them coming in around the sun. They come in 2s and 3s. Some of these streaks look exactly like the Enterprise when you look at it in the old timey, when it streaks by in warp drive. It shows up consistently on the satellite images of the sun. On the one in red, Cora, also the other, I think it's Lasco in the blue range. Oh my God, this stuff that shows up. And people say, well, I don't think ET really exists. Those are meteors and asteroids, and those are comets. Those are sun-diving comets. No, they're not. It changed course. Comets don't alter its course on a way to the sun. They don't slow down like some, there was, I can't believe it, years ago, Suspicious Observers. I'm sorry, I had to say that, but he was talking about, well, that's a sun diving comet. And I watched the same video and I thought to myself, nah, it slowed down. And the next day was like, well, this comet should have went around and it seems to have, and he was like trying to explain everything in terms of nothing's ET, everything's a rock flying through space. And sometimes you got to, now I can't say that he still feels that way, but a lot of people have changed their mind over the years because they've been observing things that ain't natural. And everybody else has tried to explain it out. It's a rock, it's a this, it's a that. No, it ain't. Sorry. It changed directions. It slowed down before it got to the sun. And if it was a quote sun diving comet, wouldn't it have swung around the? Oh well, it must have hit. Did you see it? No, but it must have. What happened if it flew by? Well, comets don't just fly by the sun. Well, if you look in some of the frames, you see something later on that looks like something came out the backs, like flew by the sun and looked like it kept going. You didn't mention that. Well, no, because it was going away from the sun. Yeah, but was that the one that came in and you said crashed? Well, argue. Well, and it can't be real because you know, and it's got to be a rock. It's got yeah. You know, the Oumuamua. Now they're really talking. I said a long time ago that's a spaceship. That's not normal. And I agreed, raised my hand a long time ago. You know, that thing changed direction. That's not a rock, guys. It may be a rock, but it's hollowed out. That's got propulsion. You know, and then because it came in straight, something zapped it because the rock was the bad guys. The good guys went in, zapped that mofo, and then it started a slow tumble. And that's how, and then when it went around the sun, they projected it to go a particular way. It got around there and then changed direction. They got their motors started so they could get the hell out of the solar system. They knocked him out. They literally knocked him out of the sky and turned that rock into a tumble. It did not come in tumbling. So what made it tumble? It's the war in space. How do I know about that? I watched one spaceship blow up another almost over my house a few years back. You know, this orange object traveling across this white globe appeared, shot a beam of laser at it. This one disappeared. This hit, and then this one just boom and disintegrated before my eyes. Appeared, shot a laser, disappeared, and the other one just disintegrated into nothingness. So I have witnessed these things, you know, and it's like, what the hell? So can they pop out of a dimension, or, you know, camouflage, appear and do something, then disappear again? Oh yeah. They know how to manipulate time because they've already done it. They've already changed our perception of time because of all these other things. They've altered, well, this happened and this is like this. And if you stop and you look at it and go, wait a minute, isn't this a repeat? You know, people were talking about, oh, this is the coldest something, blah, blah, blah. This last year. Oh, it was 101. It was 102 down here. Yeah, but it only tied a record from 1952, the year I was born. So they're like, oh, this was the hottest summer ever. No, it wasn't. It was this freaking hot in 52. The next day was 102. It tied a record from 1962. And everybody was like, oh my God, it broke a record. No, it didn't. It tied it. And it was that freaking hot back then. Y'all shut up about this climate stuff. If you go back through and look, there are patterns all around us, and all this one's another. My point, they try to manipulate time in that they say, oh, this is the worst ever. So, but if you go back in time, you go, but wait a minute, this did occur. But wait a minute, that occurred back then. Wait a minute. I mean, you know, they knew about the speed of light back in the mid 1800s. How many of us knew that? How many of us knew that they were like tinkering with laser kind of devices back in the 1800s before Tesla? I mean, what? And they would generate electricity, and the people going around and sparking each other and all this kind of stuff, you know, but they were tinkering with things where some of these original ideas came from almost 2 centuries ago now. 200 years. They've known about these basic things. And so the folks in the know have been able to use these old these, come on, Tesla, but there was stuff going on before then. Think about Da Vinci, wherever his mind was. Oh my God. So anybody like me who studied architecture and or engineering, of course we studied Da Vinci, not just as an artist, but as an inventor and so forth. But, and his idea, the thing about the body and I mean, Leonardo was a freaking genius beyond compare. Think about, does anybody these days have any kind of forethought like he did? I mean, there are some good inventors out there, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying in the realm that he was at, in the time that he was at, making a flying machine of any kind, or the thought of it, or the bicycle, or the pet. I mean, they didn't have bicycles back then, but he created things like bicycles to power things. So did the Wright brothers, did they invent this? Guess who they studied? Leonardo. They studied his idea of the curved wing. They studied lift in birds. That's why they went to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. There was the consistency of the wind and the da-da-da and all these other types of things. So with that said, we've known about a lot of stuff for a long time. Those who know about it have been manipulating us since they learned about it. We need to quit looking at things in a line, because it's not. It's at least circular. And now we are repeating patterns. The blackout the other day on the 13th, and then there was the 13 in 1977. There was the two highs this last year here in South Georgia. Didn't break the record, but tied them. Didn't break, twice. So we're tying things. We're repeating things back into certain years. I thought it was interesting. It was 52 and 62. There was a 10-year difference between the two, one day apart. That was just an odd coincidence for me too, this year, that happened 2 days in a row, but two different, anyway. But so I look at things and I go, man, yeah, okay, it was hot back then, but there are different things. So, and it affects our own reality. I gotta say that I don't know. I'm of the mind that we need to put down some kind of markers. But personally, in our own lives, I don't know. Write something on a piece of paper. That's why I got several of these little, these cheap little ledgers, that you get at the dollar store, and I've got science in one, I've got other stuff in another one, I got ruminations in some, I've got electronics in some, but I've got one around and a pencil. Anything comes up, I'm like writing it down. So I go back through something and I go, I wrote this last year. And then I realized that everything I do, I need to date, because what I think when I did it, when it actually happened, I wrote that 4 years ago. No, I just wrote that just last year. This is 19 and I wrote it in 18. No, date here says 2015. What the hell? And I've got stuff like this right here in this one and a couple others. And I go back and I go, no. I talked about that last year. No, it was 3 years ago. But I wrote this down and we talked about, that was in 2015 and 2016. This is 2019. Oh, holy crap. So even in my own reality, time seems to be doing this number. But wasn't that just last year? So I'm documenting things. I'm not just writing stuff down. I'm putting the date down. Because as things fluctuate in my own reality and looking out my own window going, shit, this is weird. I want to go back also and check in, sort of like a personal log. And it's not about so much details, is that what I remember it being ain't the same date, or there's something else that's changed about it, but I wrote it down and I documented by the time and the date. What time of day? 4 a.m, 2 p.m, blah, blah, blah. Just to kind of keep, when I look back, I go, I got this obscure little record of things. But I've noticed in my own life, it's been distorted. It's like it used to be a really tight, snug fit, going back to the rope and pushing the strands apart. recently, in the last couple of months has calmed down, but back last year and the beginning of this year, it seemed like, man, nothing was fitting. So I'm hopeful that some of the higher guidance ET information is that they have been repairing the timelines, and they have been like they killed CERN last year, so they couldn't screw with the timelines. But because of earthly changes, things have happened. Now they want to do it again. Now they want to start up another thing. Now they want to try to manipulate our timelines again. They're going to cause more Mandela effects, alter the wobble of the earth some more, heat up the magma so it flows better across underneath the United States, opens up a new volcano down in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Just saying, there used to be one down there. That's why the Crater of Diamonds is down there in Arkansas. It's the only place in physical United States that has real diamonds. Diamonds are usually around volcanoes and stuff because of the high pressure. Hot Springs, Arkansas, diamonds, the two of them says ancient volcano. New Madrid, anyone? Edge of the Craton, anyone? Energy transferring across? I hope it doesn't happen, but what's to say that steam doesn't come shooting out of there like Old Faithful and in Hot Springs and around there? I've been in Arkansas. I've been to Hot Springs. I've seen it all. And it's like, what's heating the water? Lava. Things are on the move. The time is changing. As Mother Earth expands, so is the time it takes to rotate. So is the time it's very subtle, because for every timeline, time zone, Eastern, Central, and where you are in that time zone, everybody is being affected in their own prospective timeline, meaning, and I'm saying timeline, meaning in where they are on the earth in relationship to its, because that's their perception of time. If they go 1 hour east, like you're in Tennessee around Chattanooga, one side of the, you go over there to Lookout Mountain, blah, blah, you're in Central. You go over this way, you're in Eastern time. So it's like, you can go back and forth just in an hour. You go up to Lake Nickajack, that's up out of Chattanooga, you're in Central time zone. You come back into Chattanooga and go back in Eastern time zone. So, just riding around the neighborhood up there, you can go from one hour to the next within an hour. Interesting. How does that affect people up there? They get along up there. I know some friends that live up there that work at the Tennessee Aquarium. I've had the opportunity to actually pet a penguin. They're really cool. And be inside the Tennessee Aquarium and visit behind the scenes and see a bunch of stuff, because I knew people a few years ago that worked there. And we literally got to go in and pet a penguin. They're really cool and curious. And oh my God, they're leather. It's like, what? You'd think they're all like nice and soft and everything. Their wings, their flippers, they're really strange. It's like a really hard leather, but they're pliable and they're really inquisitive critters. Really cool they are, boy. But you have to wash your feet. You have to wash your hands when you go in. You have to take your shoes off and wear special boots, because you can't bring anything into their environment. So we had to go through protocol. It's not, we didn't just walk in, but we were treated, like anybody else that feeds. So we went through all the cleanup protocol and everything, but hanging out with the penguins for about 30 minutes, it was just freaking cool. I just got to say. But anyway, so the perception of time, I think they're going to try to do something else. I don't know what, but I got this higher level feeling that these guys are up to something fishy. And all of us need to be aware of it, because if they go, if ET and if Mother Nature has just been trying to repair herself from what they've been doing, And if Mother Nature and the universe is trying to just put the rope back together and just allow things to settle back, and they want to corrupt it again, ooh. So we need to be aware of this. There were some other things I wanted to bring up right this minute. They just flew out of my brain and have been gone. But the idea that we think in linear terms, whether you believe in a round earth or not, the idea is, though, that there is an international date line. Flat earth or not, don't care. There's an international date line. And when you cross it, you're in the next day or you go back to the last one. It's not linear, it's circular. So we need to reconsider what our understanding of time is. It's your perception of it. It's where you may be. It's your location. It's the time zone, literally on the earth. What about the ley lines? If you're standing on a ley line or you're close to it, there's going to be an energy level that could very well naturally change your perception of time. I know there are times when I've meditated, I felt like I was only gone for 20 minutes and I'd been meditating for 4 hours. And I'd be up here looking down, everything was groovy. It's only been 20 minutes, not 4 hours went by. Oh, holy crap, So in that idea, in meditation, there is, and then there's been times I thought it was 4 hours that I was gone, and the reverse happened. It was only 20 minutes. And you go, holy cow. Now, that happened to me on the lake about a month ago now when I was out there and I talked about how they just pulled me up out of the kayak and put me back down. I was up in the universe for what seemed like an hour, and I wasn't gone out of that kayak 15 or 20 minutes, in that respect. It's 4:20. Yeah, it's 6:21 here. But, hey, smoke if you got them, right? I'm going to cut this off. I really went a lot longer than I thought I would. But listen, y'all hanging out with me, there are realities we really need, just don't accept what folks are trying to pawn off on us. Because how we look at the time in our own reality, wherever we live, and I go to visit friends, and what seems like, oh man, we haven't seen each other in a long time, which is true. And it seems like, wow, we only visited for 20 minutes and it was a couple of hours. But at the same time, in looking back on my visit yesterday, it was like, it seemed longer, but it was condensed. It was a real, which kind of brings up this discussion about my perception of time. It's like, wow, wait a minute. Wasn't it like 4 hours? No, that was only actually 20 minutes. But when I thought about it, it's like, wow, we did a lot in 20 minutes then that seemed like a longer period of time. Oh, so what we do during the period of time, relax and talking, our perception of time changes and wanes. And also these other things are going on. So before we just go, time this, time that, blah, blah, blah. Oh, there is a lot to consider. Both up there on other dimensions, the universal time versus our time versus what's important right here, right now. Just you gotta have this time now. Is it important that this time right now is important? Why? Who says so? You got to be at work on time. Oh God, I hated that shit, and was always late. That's why my clock's 5 minutes fast. But I don't have to go anywhere. But anyway, it's a long-standing joke, and I keep my clock 5 minutes fast anyway. But to the point, though, time. It's all up to the other person. You must be on time. You must do this on time. This product has to be finished on time. Everything is time. When I worked in the manufacturing area, people used to have 2 or 3 weeks worth of backup stuff in a warehouse, because if anything happened on the supply chain that supplied them for their manufacturing, they always wanted a backup. And back when I worked at Prestolite 2003 and 4, they went to a thing called just in time, JIT. And just in time means you only have maybe a week's worth of supply. So if your supply chain gets cut off in any way, manufacturing shuts down because you don't have stuff. where before they would have a warehouse full of backup in case something happened, they didn't get enough product in, something happened on the other guy's end, truck broke down, all kinds of stuff. But they had a 3 to 4 day window. There are places in New York City and other cities, they've only got a 2 days food supply because everything changed back in 2003, 4, 5, 6 in there, and everything started changing. Manufacturing, delivery, I mean, the whole thing has moved to just in time. So 3 day supply across the board in all areas of all different types, food, manufacturing, blah, 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 3 days. If the supply chain fails anywhere along the line, down it goes. Time, just in time. Time this, time that. Hey, you got a time, buddy? Hey, well, let's smoke one if you got the time. Well, I do. You do. Do you have a TV on? I did, but not now. No, why? Why, Mother Nature? You hear something in the background? I got a TV, but it's not on. I don't think you do. Your screen is lit up blue. Oh, what's happened is the sun's coming up and it's changed the light in the house. So I was just getting the light from this lamp right here, but now the light the pre-dawn is coming through the windows, and it does have a blue tint to it. It's kind of odd looking out the windows, but it is reflecting in here. But I think that's what you may be seeing the blue from. At blue, lit up blue at the corners, right around. Yeah. I guess we have to become enlightened in quantum mechanics before we ascend further. It's flickering. Well, Cherry, the enlightenment comes with allowing it to happen. The fact that you now understand that it exists is one of the biggest leaps. So everything else is practice in the quantum. For people who say, nah, it don't exist, the ether don't exist, all this other things, they don't exist. When you understand, oh my God, they do exist, that you have made a leap of faith into a whole nother class. You're not in kindergarten anymore. You have ascended already to a higher level that at least it exists. You get it. Now, there's a lot of information. You got to learn about protocols and things and how to maneuver and, but you get it where other people don't. So in so many ways, the simple fact that you understand that it does exist, you've already ascended way much higher than a lot of other people because they don't get it. They don't think it's important. It's just not, it's nonsense to them. You understand what I'm saying, Cherry? So you're already, if there is a line to be ahead of, but it's the understanding of reality. Now, for each step in reality, there is the enlightenment and the awareness that goes on with each one of the steps. But when you make that giant leap of, oh my God, it really is out there. Now, how do I learn how to use it? I'm still learning. I'm a shaman in training. Although I've learned so many techniques and understand so many things, I'm still learning. God, I hope I'm always learning. It's fun to gain knowledge and more information and how things work and different perspectives on time and this, so I can have these discussions with you all. But to the point, though, you've experienced too much to know better. Yes. Oh, it's okay, Mother Nature. Y'all folks can ask me anything you want. I don't hide much if you've watched my videos, because I do think it's all about honesty. And, if somebody can learn from my experience, or for example, you have shared a similar type of experience so that it confirms or reaffirms something that you've been kind of questioning, that's what I'm here for too. Because I know I've listened to many people. I still listen to folks because I want to hear confirmation from these other folks that I have trusted over the years. And I just want to, I've got this information from the quantum. What do y'all have to say? Oh, holy crap. 4 out of 5 of you agree with me. And I learned this on my own. I didn't hear it from anybody. I learned this on my own, but you guys agree. And I didn't listen to you, but you're going, oh, holy crap. That's how you know whether or not you're picking up the right information from the universe. And you may get it close and stuff. It's your intuition. But people who don't use their intuition, people who don't think they even have it, people, so the whole idea of once you understand it does exist, it's practice in using it. Setting up little things like, okay, when my spirit guide says, go to the river, we got a present, and I follow instructions, and I come home with deer antlers. That's an exercise. So set it up with your own higher self to make sure that you are connected. And I keep saying it, don't go out looking for other stuff. Stick with your own. Mother Mary keeps telling me, tell these dimwits, but she kind of conveys they've got to be dim-witted if they're looking for any other spirit to talk to. If you want to pray to St. Michael, then just say a prayer to St. Michael. Well, I'm going to invoke his name and I'm going to say prayers. And I want St. Michael. He's got better things to do. Stop it. Who the hell are you to say that you're so god dog important, you're going to invoke a guardian angel to stop what the hell he's doing to come and chat with your dumbass? I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Wait a minute, but can you connect through prayer, through higher self, to the quantum and talk to Michael or one of the, sure, but he ain't got time. So all these people are, well, St. Michael sitting beside me and we're having a conversation. Oh, bullshit. I don't know who you're channeling, but it ain't him because he's too freaking busy. He ain't got time for this. We are at war in the heavens. Ain't got time for this mamby-pamby people trying to invoke his name and do all this stuff. And these guys are a little ticked off that there are folks out there promoting this. I say I get a Mother Mary message. I never say, well, I'm sitting here having this conversation with Mother Mary and she sends me a message. Spirit guides fills me in on the details if it's necessary, but it's usually very simple. You got to stick with yourself. Don't go out, stick with your own spirit, stick with your own guardian angel. If you got to pray to something, to make the prayer short, make them with good intent, but worrying and trying to invoke other entities to come is just, it's insanity. That I am so important that I can call any spirit to my attention. And some of these folks they're going to get the wrong thing. They're being bamboozled because the true Michael or whatever entity that they're trying to conjure up, they've got some other guy who's like, ooh, they're calling Michael again. It's time for me to say, hey, Joe, you want this one? Or you go ahead and take it, Fred. I got the last one. Oh, I'm Michael, and I'm going to talk to you, and you're channeling me, and it ain't him. Oh, they say enough stuff, and in their own mind, I think they're making up things. Now, I do think that some of the things they're hearing is coming from the quantum reality, but these entities don't have time. All these people are talking about, they ain't got time. Ain't got time. And I'm sorry, but what makes you so worthy that you think you're going to get Michael's attention to begin with? Now, Mother Mary came to me at the age of 7 and again at 11 and again about a year ago. And she pops in little, hey, tell the folks. I mean, she makes me get up in the middle of the night and do these things. But it's not like she comes, visits, no, I get the message. I understand. Sometimes it comes by courier mail through my spirit guide, but it's obviously her, and there's emotion, there's love, there's intent with the message, but it ain't a conversation. She doesn't have time, but she can send me a quick email, a quick text, boom. And that's kind of what it is. But this idea that I've got now I do have, I feel a special connection, but she initiated it when I was at the age of 11. She told me, I didn't conjure her up. I didn't ask for this for her to come. She comes of her free will. She gives me mother messages when she feels it's important, not when I feel it's important. So these other folks are like, well, me and Mother Mary, we had this conversation and she's just hanging around and we're having, I'm sorry, Mother Mary tells me that's just bullshit. I ain't got time for that, quite frankly. But she does have time to send a quick text. That's sort of like Donald Trump tweeting something. You know what I mean? I got a tweet from Mother Mary. Hey, remind these clowns to quit trying to contact other spirits. You know, tell them to pray for the, you know, Michael ain't got time for this stuff. You know, quit. Tell them to quit being dimwit, you know, narcissists that they've got the power. Yeah, these come in little tweets, like, for example. So there are a lot of realities that people, I'm sorry, but some of these higher entities, they're not really happy with some of these people because these people keep promoting that, oh, I've got special contact. I'm not, you know, she tells me it's okay. But it's also, she tells me, you explain this to these folks, that these are text messages. I don't come and sit around the house and we're having tea like some other people claim. Same thing with Michael. So if you're trying to connect with some of these spirits, expect a text message. Maybe it's a little emoticon, like a happy smile with glasses or something. And that says, you know, tell them to love their neighbor, you know, with a happy smile and glasses on and blah, blah, blah. So I get an emoticon. So if you want information from the quantum, sometimes it comes in forms of a sentence. Sometimes it comes in just the form of one thought. But that one thought is like a zip file that when you click on it, it opens up and there's all this other information in there. That's what it is. It's time relevant. When you get the message, it's like there's time involved in this because the message, time-wise, is only this long. But when you open up the file, it takes me hours, sometimes days, to understand what that one tweet means. That one single text line means that I get from, you know, like I say, sometimes I know it's Mother Mary. I can hear her voice. It's the feeling. But other times I know the message is from her, but it is straight from my spirit guide. And there's sort of like a Mother Mary message, you know, handing it off. Oh, gotcha. And when I hear it, feel it, I get it, it's her. It ain't something else from some other realm or anything like that. Nope, it's her. There's like, I don't know, like in the days of old when the kings stamped their stuff, you know, they poured wax on the envelope and put their stamp on it. It's kind of like that. You know who it's coming from. But the thing is, if you're trying to reach other entities, how are you going to know if they're the true ones? If you stick with your own and you keep practicing, you go through it time again, because it's over time that you realize that you are connected to the quantum. You are connected to your spirit guide, your angel self. And then these other entities, they'll send messages to you because now they know you got a secure line. That was one of the things they showed me about 2 years ago. Listen, you need to listen just to us, which is basically what I did anyway. But they were like, nah, you really need to just hone in on your own private line. I mean, it's like the president and the red phone, you know, it's a direct line. You ain't getting nobody else. And so you get your connection right. And so with practice, that's how I've gotten my connection to the point where I don't have to meditate to get the connection. I've honed my skills enough to, I know it's there. It's active right this minute. And so I'm getting a smile from one of them up there going, you tell them, Dave. But the thing is, though, that other entities, other information will be then verified through your own spirit guide, through your own. So you'll know that it's true. And then when you get other confirmations, you'll know that, oh my God, I have ascended. I hate to use that word. You have transcended. It's a transcendence we're going through more than an ascension. We're transitioning from a lower frequency to a higher vibration. We're not ascending. We are transitioning. We are transcending the third dimension into the fourth. This idea of ascension up, it's more out and around. It ain't just up, you know. But we think in terms of linear. So it's up the ladder, it's up to this, it's down the road, it's, so we give it these terms, these linear terms. So in our understanding of time, we understand these things. So see, all these things are connected on all these different wavelengths and things and time zones and realities and parallel and other dimensions and realities. I mean, for example, and I'm going to kind of close with this, but I was contemplating the other day, and I did when I was on the beach taking pictures of the orbs. Now, these orbs are interdimensional because they exist where they do. But I can also now take pictures of them in the third dimension. So here's a question. Because I can take pictures of these orbs better, I can perceive them more than I used to. Now I'm taking, I've cleaned my body up and I'm more spiritually aware in understanding that these things exist, and I've had more practice at feeling their energies. But does that mean I'm making the transference into the fourth dimension? Or is the fourth dimension bleeding now more into the third dimension? So the entire planet is in this transition. We're seeing fourth dimensional beings in our 3D reality. We've already broken into the parallel universe. We're already seeing beyond the veil right now. Do we need a machine to do it? Many of us have already noticed things. I've taken pictures, other people have. There's videos. I mean, one of my videos several months back, an orb went up and across the screen, and another one appeared and went across on live, TV here. So it's like, do these things exist? Absolutely. Cherry, understand, it's just learning it. It's just getting comfortable with a new pair of shoes kind of thing. Or, if I go to a different part of the river, for example, it's the same river. It's just a different location. So I got to get used to, oh, well, there's a tree over here and there's a something. And ooh, it's really narrow in here. Oh, wow, it's really big and wide and deep in here. So same river, different locations. So same quantum, but different realities, because we're still in the quantum, we're still in that realm of thinking, but we're on different parts of the river. We're in different portions of it. Even though it's the same one, it gives our time and our perception that we're in a different location, when actually we're kind of just on the same river, just north one time and south one time. Same river, same water, same information, same energy, just simply a different location on that plane, in that realm, in that thought. I know this is some deep ass shit. I've not listened to many people who try to discuss it as in depth as I do. Not to say they aren't, trust me. And there are very smart people out there, but we really need to, in order to understand these higher realms, we just need to understand what's already around us in different points of view. And just, so that's why my conversation. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My second video for tonight. Oh my God. Mother Nature says I trip myself out sometimes. I mean, I do, and I'm not even high. When I was out on the river, out on the lake that night, when they took me up into the Milky Way, oh my God. I mean, I've had some really good mushroom trips. Let me tell you, I've had some really good acid trips. Let me tell you. And I wasn't on anything but maybe a couple of hits off my bowl. And that was one of the trippiest trips I've ever experienced. And without going into any big ceremonies or anything, they just said, relax, we're taking you on a trip. Come on with us. Holy crap, but wow, and I got to say, at least from my perception of the time I was there and of the experience, they took me somewhere. It wasn't just astral. They took me someplace, Um, Sherry says, you're right about war. Every time uh, to do a plan to make a place, a collective things happen to set me back. Yep. What do you feel she needed to know when she appeared? She makes that determination, Cherry. I don't. I mean, over the last several years, the last big time she appeared, I mean, literally right over there, along with Sister Helene, the Dominican nun who was my teacher at Tampa Catholic. The two of them appeared at the same time, right over there, and I almost shit myself. But to the point, though, I was like, it wasn't just Mother Mary; it was my mentor and my spirit guide. Sister Helene, is the one that told me to study Buddhism and not become a priest. I mean, and she was with Mother Mary. Oh, holy crap. And they were like, it's time, listen up. It's not just me. I brought Sister Helene. They were both shaking their finger at me going, okay, we talked to you about this. Now it's time for you to do it. And that's when I started really going into the shaman spiritual on my YouTube videos. Back when you can see the change in what I was bullshitting about. And then when I started being really serious about certain topics, that's when Mother Mary came. That's when I had those visits. They choose it. But now I stay tuned into my spirit guide, who leads me to articles and science things on the internet and things, and I listen to radio programs. I'm always listening, paying attention, and getting other points of view and seeing what folks are up to. And then there are those folks who come up with things like, ooh, let's do some spirit conjuring, like it's a good thing. No, conjure, wrong. So when I see certain things, then she might send me a message. You need to talk to them about that. Wrong. You need to set them straight about that. And that'll be the basic message. Then my spirit guide will come in and go, yep, you need, we got orders from the boss, if you will. Not as like that. But it's like, this is a topic for discussion. And my spirit guide says, all right, meditate with me a little bit, and I'm going to fill you in on some details, and we're going to cover some things. So when I have these conversations, sometimes I have notes, sometimes they just make sure it's in my head. So when I speak about it and listen to my spirit guide, they'll remind me, remember to discuss this part. Remember to bring up, linear. Remember to bring up Jupiter and this. Remember to bring up the time. Remember, so they prompt me with notes that I've taken up here through my own meditation when I get these downloads on a subject. Now, sometimes I already know the subject. I just need to let it, kind of toss around in my head for a little bit. That's why this idea of time and this and that, there's going to be a different discussion about time, but this hits a basic premise, listen, you got to understand these things, what's already here, what has been going on, before we can kind of postulate anything further beyond this point. So this is a really good heavy duty basic electricity, energies, planets, time zones, all of this is relative to go the next step in discussing time travel, time dimensions, time distortion. Okay. So yeah, this is just part of the discussion. This ain't even really hitting into the really heavy duty stuff. This is really to get you, holy crap, what the hell is he going to talk about? Well, we'll see. But I guarantee you, I hope it's interesting, because I'm going to twist your brain I'm going to take you beyond this level of all these basic things, and let's go up a notch. Now, about the ascension things, keep in mind, change that word in your vocabulary to transition. We are transforming, not ascending. We're not going up. If you want to use third dimension to fourth dimension, but fourth dimension is already around us, so we are expanding. We are transitioning. We are transferring into another enlightenment. We are not ascending. That's a wrong. We're not going up. We are going out and around. It's more than up. So the idea of using ascension is a false sense of where we're headed. Because when you understand the universe, you don't understand it up. You understand it around you. Mother Nature, when you go outside and when you accept Mother Nature and you feel the trees and the forest, it ain't just up or one directional, it's omnidirectional, it's everywhere, and it all comes in. So you don't ascend. It'd be like climbing one tree in the forest. You ascended a tree, yeah, but you didn't transform. You didn't transfer. You know what I mean? You didn't make the transition. You just ascended a tree. Now, which would you rather do? Which term would you rather use? And terms are important. Well, ascension this, ascension that. Oh, we're going to get raptured. We're going to get this. And I've mentioned before about rapture. Um, here's just a thought about this, though, about the rapture. If that incident out on the lake, and it's happened several times, but that one particular one where I just up and down, and that was a rapture moment for me because it was rapturous in how I felt. But did I leave this earth, or was I gone? Was I part of the 144,000? No. But it was a rapture moment for me in how I was taken out, how I, in that respect, I did ascend because they took me out of my body up, but they brought me back. It was a rapturous moment, but it was part of the transition that we're all are making. I ascended for that moment, but it helped to expand my around me, because that's what they wanted to show me. They're saying, you're just looking up. You're not looking around, because that's part of the transitioning. We're transitioning, we're transferring, we're expanding, not just climbing a tree. So use what you want. But in this discussion, though, it's important because I noticed that people stopped using ascension so much, and some people actually started using the word transition. And I'm like, thumbs up. We're not ascending. We are transitioning. Let's use the proper terminology, please. Let's not give false hope or give false anything. Ascension, all this crap is tied to religion. Transitioning, transferring, that is a higher spiritual realm that is relative to the ancient shamans and the ancient traditions that they've known for millions of years. They know on other galaxies, they know in other realities, they know in other solar systems. It's like the common thing. It's the rule of one, do no harm to anything. Not a tree, not a rock, to a person, don't do any harm, please, and if you do, apologize, make amends, try not to do again. But the idea, though, that so in order to understand this higher level of thinking, like when I discussed about the foxes killing my chicken, did I have the right to kill the fox because it killed my chicken? No. As much as I tried to kill the chicken, I mean the fox with my bow and arrow, I just wounded it. It got over it. But to the point, did I have the right to kill it in revenge for killing my chicken? Chicken's already dead. A fox is a fox. He's hungry. He figured out a way to get in my chicken pen. It's my fault that the damn thing got in there. And I didn't realize it would go through this much of a space. But the point is, should I kill the fox because it's a fox? Or should I slap myself and go, you should have fixed the pen better? Well, I learned a lesson. But now I have two foxes. One of them come up right up to the window over here the other morning. I was like, what? Tapped on the window and just stood there and looked at me like, what are you doing? So I actually put feed out there to keep them from trying to kill my last two chickens. But I've had a couple of small kittens disappear, and I believe it's the foxes that got them. So should I kill a fox for that? Because they're hungry? I mean, in my reality, what's important? So we have to look at other things like, well, should we get, there are certain people with certain personalities. We always get upset with them. But if you stop and look at them, you go, they've always been that way. And it's me, or maybe you, that have tried to change their perception when maybe they're just a fox, or maybe sometimes a possum is just a possum. You can do all you want to, and you can bitch and complain. Possum killed 4 of my chickens. Fox got 4 more. It's like 44. That's never mind. But to the point, though, I didn't kill the possum either, because he's just a possum. And I took his ass 4 miles down the road, but ain't around here anymore. But to the point, though, did I have the right to kill the possum simply because he was hungry and he got in? No. Much as I want revenge, I spiritually, I was like, and I got to, like, they looked down at me and said, go ahead, kill him. You got the right, eye for an eye, blah, blah, blah. But now, if you truly want to be a spiritual being, this is one big ass lesson, Hawkeye. Do you have the right to take a revenge on an animal that's just trying to survive, and it managed to get in your chicken pen? The answer is no. I can't. Now, if it was a bobcat or something that was trying to attack me, or, it was really being a pain in the ass, but like the foxes, other than them attacking smaller critters, catching them and eating them because there's pups nearby, do I have the right to kill them because they're foxes? And that's what they do. Now, there are a lot of people around here that trap foxes. I'm not one of them. Now, if it looked like one of them was rabbit or something, I'd be out there with my bow and arrow right now, and I'd take them out. But that's not what the case is. So in our understanding of time and our realities and what is right, is it time for me to kill the fox? Is it time for me to take revenge? I mean, this is, in my time of reality of making the transition in my own spiritual life, this is a really big ass lesson I need to learn for myself, because I want to kill the bitch. I want to go out there and I was going to use a machete on the possum, and I was like, I don't have the right. For me, what a big ass lesson that was. And what I found out is that what I wanted was revenge. And revenge can't be a part of this. So understand, you can ascend a tree, but you're only going to get to the top of it if you make the transition. If you make the transition, it's like changing trains. If you left the station and made your transit and got to your destination, you didn't ascend, you made the transit. You made the journey to the other dimension. If you ascend, you're only going up a ladder, only going up a tree, and there's a limit to that. In all realms, in all spaces, in all dimensions, in all timelines, there's a limit if you just want to ascend. It's not infinite, but to transition is morphing from one phase to the next phase to the next phase. It is an eternal growing, and it's not up, down, it's in all phases. So just keep that in mind. And the more I know, when I started speaking the truth about what's actually happening, like I just described you, the more in my own heart, it's like, yep, that's what it is. Yep, Dave, that's what it is. Yep, it literally, it strikes me in the chest, and I go, oh, holy crap. And it helps to sink it in my own heart. This is truly how it's happening, because it's expanding this way and out and up and around. It's so much more than ascension. You're welcome, Mother Nation. You want to care for chickens? Let me put my gun. Will we become more energetically connected and some abilities? Absolutely, Cherry. That's why people are having problems with the jitters and stuff. Their DNA's changing. People are starting to see things out of the corner of the eye that don't usually talk about this stuff. There are folks in all kinds of different areas and all kinds of different places who are discussing, well, I saw a ghost, I saw this, I saw an orb. I mean, there are other people who ain't even anywhere near where I say we try to be as far as spiritually and aware to things. They're just common folks, but they're noticing shit. And they're noticing shit more on a regular basis, and it's becoming more prevalent. And people are taking pictures of the odd clouds, and people are trying to say, that cloud ain't a cloud. There's something on the other side of it. You know, and we've been trying to say for a long time, ET's going to start showing himself. I've they've showed themselves to me several times, like I discussed with them shooting one down with a laser beam kind of thing. So, but the thing is that if you're aware, I think Brian Lunford said it on Brian Milky Way Weekly show last night. He said, just ask them. Now, here's the trick. Here's the thing. You got to understand something. People, I want a spaceship to appear. Listen, what gives you the right to command anybody to appear in front of you? What? Who the hell are you to say, well, I want a spaceship to come out of the, uncloak itself and show itself to me? Who the hell are you? I'm just saying. So these people, I want to see one with blah, 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 with this and this and that and that. Now, I've been contacted by them, and they say, go outside, Hawkeye. Look up. Boom. There it is. Oh, crap. So I don't ask them to appear. I have asked them, when you're around and you may appear, let me know. Let me go outside so I can see. I know y'all are damn busy with the war up there, and I know it takes a lot of energy for them to unmask and mask just for one or two people to go, oh, there's a UFO. Oh, stop it. What makes us so freaking special that we think that we can just command these folks to appear and disappear at will? Now, I'm not saying that Brian Lunford is lying about what he's talking about. My point is that everybody wants to see one. Everybody thinks they're the special ones, that they're the ones that need the. Hang on. Why don't you say, listen, contact your spirit guide, because once I tuned into mine, they warned me, hey, go outside, look over this way, look over there. I went outside that night and did a video about that big comet thingy they were say was an asteroid, some kind of meteor or something came in. No, what I saw light up the sky that night that came in over Florida, that was too many colors. There's no damn way that thing was any kind of meteor, asteroid, and otherwise. It was a spaceship that got blowed up and disintegrated and ended up in Taylor County in Florida. I did a live report right after it happened and triangulated the damn thing. That was not a rock, period. I've worked in machinery, and when you get different metals and you do the spark test, there's all these different colors. Listen, I've seen meteors come in. They're usually one or two colors, maybe three. The stuff that came in that night, there was it was like a rainbow of colors, and it was so bright. I literally thought that the world was coming to an end. The sky was so bright, and it lit up the whole. I was outside when it happened, and oh my God, and watched the trail come down. And that was oh no, it wasn't. That was a spaceship. Somebody blew somebody down. But the idea that what makes us so special that they're just going to show up. I mean, they're patrolling, they're keeping an eye on us, maybe if their neighborhood. So that's what I tell people. Listen, I just tell my spirit guide, if y'all in the neighborhood, let me know. And they tell me to go outside. They tell me to look over here. I did reports on the one. I even followed that one down into Florida on Christmas Eve. I did a report on it, and then I got home and they followed me back up. It was brighter when I got home than when I went down to Florida to chase it down. And I kept an eye on it the whole damn hour drive south. And got home, and there it was, right in the same location that I'd been watching it, and it was bigger and brighter than chasing it to Florida. Just strange. But to the point, though, they were playing games with me that night, and they were going, ha, 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 ha. But anyway, but I also learned a lot that night and some other things. They showed me some other stuff when I was down in Florida and looking up at the sky. I mean, it wasn't a wasted trip. And I was able to start to triangulate some things. That's why I knew when that one came in where the damn debris landed. And they all kind of agreed about that. I mean, where they thought the thing landed was in Taylor County, near Perry, blah, 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 Florida, and I was like, I say I was right because I was listening to my own spirit. And they were like, Taylor County, blah, 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 over near. And I thought about it and we talked about it on the live stream. And boom, there it is. 2 days later, they gave confirmation that, I was right about it. But the thing is, I was right because I was listening to my spirit guide help to triangulate where it was. They were giving me a visual from up there, and they said, "Nah, they didn't land over here." They told me to go outside because to watch what was going to happen. So I mean, anyway, in that respect, so people who think that the audacity that you're one single little human being going to stop a Palladian ship so they can open up and go, "Hello," come on now, we got to rethink this. Will they? Can they? Yes. But people who think, well, I want one to appear. Who the hell are you? Is your frequency right? Now, I've been outside before and looking up at the sky and said, listen, you all know you can come visit me anytime. There's a big enough place to land on my property for a scout ship. No big mothership, and you have my permission to land. Be careful of the power line, but there's enough room up here, and I keep it mowed, and you have my permission. And at the same time, I felt, but I know you guys are already up there. I know if you're in another dimension, it's hard to come from fourth dimension down to a visible third. So you're asking these beings to expend all this energy just so you can wave at them, and etc. It takes a lot of energy for them to back down and then go back up again. So people aren't really aware of this kind of stuff. Listen, tune in. They'll tell you when they're near. They will let you know, go outside and watch, versus you asking them to appear. Be respectful. That's one of the things that some of these folks don't get. You're not respecting what the hell they're doing. Oh, well, they're just up there flying around. They could disappear when I ask them to. No, please don't do that. Show some respect. They're listening. And if you're so arrogant and put on this air that, well, I just have to, don't do that. That's disrespectful. Think about it. You're asking a higher being to stop what the F they're doing to come and placate and play party games for you. I don't think so. That's disrespectful on such a high level. Most people on the planet don't get it. Because they think, well, it's all for me. It's all for this. It's all for that. Blah, blah, blah. Me. Show me. Who the hell are you? Have you worked out your frequency yet? You might not have the right frequency to see us. And you want us to come down to your level so we can show you? You're not even paying attention to what's already here. So and now you think, well, okay, what makes you so high and mighty that we should stop what we're doing to say hello? Just saying. Is that respectful? I mean, it's just like walking into a building and going up to a store manager and going, hey, stop what you're doing. I want you to go over to the sporting goods with me because I want to. What? You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go in and stop a store manager and go, I need your attention. Blah, blah, blah. In the reality of things, that's kind of what you're doing. You're asking these people to stop what the hell they're doing. They're managerial. We're in a war, for God's sakes, up there and down here. So for people to just stop doing war, stop their mission, stop whatever they're doing to come and appear for you. I know I've repeated this, but it's important because it's disrespectful and dishonorable on such a heavy duty level. That's what people on earth are going to have to learn. And the transition into the fourth, feeding the ego. Yes, Mother Nature, I know people, there's so much that people just, that it's only going to come out like that. You're welcome, Cherry. Let's see. I'm going back up here. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you. Oh, crazy. I've been having the jitters lately. Only had that when I had to take perception medication. I understand. Um, you can want all you want. Hopefully, you receive what you need. Absolutely. And that's one of the things I've been trying to tell people. And one of the things that the big changes I had to make in my own life was I realized there was a lot of crap I wanted. But after I got some of it, I realized I didn't really need it. So now I don't, my first question is, whoa, there's that. I'm going to buy this or blah, blah, blah. And then the next question goes, hang on, do you need that? Well, I don't know. It's really shiny and pretty. And do you need it? Blah, 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 blah. My brain goes into the thingy. I really want it. Blah, 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 but do you need it? Well, I got the money. That's my question. Do you need it, Hawkeye? And then after my long conversation with self, I go, not really. But I want it. It's cool. It's neat. It'd be nice to have. But I'm going to add it to all the rest of the junk I got around me? No, I don't think so. So, but people have to learn on themselves. But you're absolutely right. And that's one of the ideas, though, of what people think they need to manifest. And I was talking about it in another video. Somebody says, I need a car, blah, blah, blah. So somebody gives you a Chevy and you wanted a Ford. So for some reason, your perception of what you want to manifest is obfuscated, obscured. If you open yourself up to the universe will give you options. But you have to, maybe it's a Volkswagen instead of a Ford. But if what you need, and I use the car idea, if what you need is a car to manifest, I want good tires, brakes, it needs to run and not leak, decent gas mileage, a certain criteria. Put that out there and see what comes back, regardless of the make, model, color, or whatever. And a lot of other people go, well, I don't know, yeah, but it's in your price range. The guy's giving it to you, blah, blah, blah. I know, but it's not really what I wanted. I wanted a newer car. Oh, God, I've heard this mamby-pamby. They're offering you a car. I know, but it's not really what I want. But if they're offering you... So creators offering people stuff all the time, but it's not what they perceive that they think they want or need. Well, actually, it's what they want, not what they need. When they need a decent car, they want a Ford. You're welcome, Cherry. I've only saw one of ours, the black triangle. Yeah, now see, I've seen everything but a black triangle. I've seen all other kinds of vehicles. I've not seen a triangle. Well, wait a minute. I take that back. Now, I haven't seen a black TR3B, but I have seen a triangular shaped thing. And I saw it about this time of the morning, actually, and I was outside looking at the sky, blah, blah, blah. And it looked like a tetrahedron. So it was a triangular here, and then it would flip down and then flip up and flip down and flip up. And it changed all different kinds of colors. And sometimes it actually looked like it turned a little bit and then flipped down and turned this way and flip down and flip up. And it was sort of diamond shaped in a way, but it was more than just two sides. It was at least three. There was at least three sides of this thing, but it was triangular in a way, but not a TR3B triangular. So anyway, but I just remembered, yes, I have seen it, and it tumbled in the sky, and I watched it for a long time, tried to get it on camera, and I could see it clearly through my binoculars. But when I tried to zoom in with my camera, all it was this blurry thing. And it was like, what's the point? I couldn't zoom in close enough, but I could clearly observe it. And it was doing this triangular weird. It was beautiful. I mean, and then finally it was almost like as I was watching it, it's almost like it heard me, and it literally just disappeared. It didn't go anywhere. It just disappeared. And I went, what? It was out this direction. I saw this. And I mean, it literally just, it didn't dissolve. It just, 1 second it was there, clearly visible in the early morning sunlight, twinkling and moving, and then it was gone. So, but the thing is, they told me to go outside that morning and look in that area, and they appeared so that I could see that they existed. I didn't ask them to come. I did ask them to let me know when they were in the neighborhood. That's the polite thing to do. So we need to understand, in all things in the universe, everything deserves honor. If you want respect, then you must give respect. If you wish honor on yourself, then you must show honor to others. You want ET to get along with you, you need to get along with them. You need to show kindness, respect, and not this, Now, I'm hoping, I know you all get it, but the thing is, and Miss Cherry, the understanding is just allowing this transition to happen. I know you've said a couple of times, and it's like you wish that you understood more. You wish that you understood it better. All right. You've asked several times tonight, this morning. Now, I suggest allowing for you, though, if you have a specific thing you need clarification on, rather than this is what I asked the orbs that night I was down there. For example, this applies to everybody. It applies to me. And I don't know if this is your situation, but it's a suggestion to get things narrowed down. Oh, I want to understand more about what. So when I was asking the orbs, so what are you doing? Well, we're orbs. Where are you from? Another dimension. Why are you here? Well, and they told me. And then they said, so what else you want to know? And I was stumped, and I was like, you're from another? Yeah, we already answered that. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I already answered that. And so it was like, we're orbs. What do you expect? What do you want to know from us? We're here. We're talking to you. You're taking pictures of us. What do you want to know? And I realized, crap, I don't know. And I had to give respect and say, I'm sorry, but I don't have any more questions. And I wrote them down. I talked about it in another video. But to my own point, I looked back over that and I thought to myself, now what gave me the right? Now I went down there with instructions to do this. So I didn't go disrespectful. And that was the night I did the ceremony. So I went with respect and I burned sage and all these other things. But my point to that was that I had to listen to them. I couldn't make them talk to me. And when I did ask them questions and I did the automatic writing answers, I realized that I was trying to ask something. They were like, is that all you wanted to know? Why'd you ask us here? We thought you was going to ask the question, what's the meaning of life? Or, conjuring up a spirit. What do you want them for? I don't know. Well, you wanted to talk to us, right? Well, kind of. Well, then what do you want to ask? Well, I guess I wanted to confirm what I sort of already knew. Okay, this is confirmed. That's confirmed. What else? And I was like, respectfully, I'm sorry, I don't have any other questions. And now I feel stupid that I'm here and asking these questions, and I don't have anything to really ask you. I don't really have a need. There's no, there are a lot of burning questions, but the orbs, the spirits there that night, and this is my point, Cherry, they said, ask us a specific question. Don't just ask, well, what's it like on the other side? I mean, ask us, narrow down what you want, stick with the intent, and try to keep what you want answered focused. So it's not too broad of a subject, because otherwise they're going to look at it and go, I don't know how to answer that. It's too broad of a thought. So when you say, for me, myself, I wish I could better understand the universe. Fine. What about it? Well, so pick something that's more curious. I wish to understand more about astral projection. Now we've got experts that they'll come and chat with you about this. But if you're just like, well, what's the universe? What's it like when I die? Die when? Spiritually, mentally, physically, or can you be more precise? What do you mean, what's it like? Is it like in the other world? Are you becoming a spirit? Blah, blah, so sometimes the questions that we ask are too broad. And literally, the angels are sitting up there going, I don't know how to answer that. It's too broad of a question. We're willing to answer it, but you need to maybe narrow down. So this is but it works for me. I know they straightened my ass right out. And I talked about it when I did that orb video. They were like, so what's your question? What's your question? I realized my questions were they were too broad, and I didn't have anything specific, and they'd already answered those. So what else? I don't know. Well, so my next thing when I was talking with the orb spirit, I said, "What can you share with me?" And their answer is, "What do you want to know about?" And I was like, what do you got to share?" They came back with the thing. About what? Well, about the universe. What about the universe? So they weren't being ugly to me. I was too broad of a statement in my question. How the hell can they answer me when I can't ask the question right? That was my own self. But I realized that's really a big thing. And we need to show respect, which I did. But I realized that I was a dummy, complete flipping idiot. I was sitting on the beach there by the water going, oh my God. I'm sitting here talking with this spirit, and I feel like a complete dutz. I thought I was prepared. Oh, crap. But that was part of the lesson of that night. Going to ask a question to the universe? Be specific as much as you can, and then allow the information to come in. The other thing is for me, it can come in an ad. It can come in a lady's underwear ad there's a certain phrase or something. I go, ooh, that reminds me, it ain't the ad, but there might be certain words. There might be a keyword. There might be a symbol, something that will remind me, holy crap, that confirms there is an affirmation in the 3D world, what I saw, heard, or otherwise felt from the other side. That's how we practice that. And I'm still working at it, but I give you these insights so that you can and use them as you can. But I'm telling you, when they put me on the spot there, it was almost like I was standing before God. God says, ask me a question, Hawkeye. And I'm going, well, God, go ahead, son, answer me. Gee, God, I don't know. Well, you wanted to talk to me. You came all this way. You asked for me to stop at what I was doing, and you don't really have a question. Well, what's it like? What's what like? But I could go back through that, but to the thing, think about it. That's what I have to do. Is like, wait a minute, is that really a question, or is it more of a puzzlement? Let me go through this myself and say, what do I really want to know out of this? Okay, all right. So my trip into the universe, what are you going to show me? I want to understand more. For example, my own thought. I want to understand awareness more. I want to understand if there's more. Am I really aware of my surroundings? Am I really open to this? So it was sort of, it was the same question, just posed a little differently. So I sent it up there and said, any clarification along this particular subject, my awareness of the universe, of things, how's it going? Any clarification, any notes, and yeah, they continue to give me notes about it. So, I mean, even now I'm getting notes about this to be able to relate this to you. So I'm still learning, but it boils down to respect, honor, and with a positive intent. And, I'm thinking about that time down the river and how stupid I felt when they asked me, so what do you want to know? Then why'd you come meet with me? You could have got this through your own spirit guide. I know. And here I got this audience with you down here at the river, and I don't know what to say. And they didn't know what to tell me because they already knew I understood a certain amount about reality. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been talking to a Norb being. So, there are certain things like, well, I already understand they exist, this, and this. So I've already, met certain criteria. So it's not like they can fill me in on that because I'm already there talking to them. So it was like, so what else you want to know? I'm not sure. But you wanted this meeting and you okay. Crap. So in what I did in a way was disrespectful because I feel I was really unprepared for that particular meeting. Now, like I said, I learned from it and they have told me later on, see, that's the point. We wanted you to come and meet with us because we wanted to show you, hey, you just can't call us out for anything. What's your purpose? Why do you want to speak to us? Is there a particular question? Maybe your spirit guide can answer. We're willing to chat with you, but now that you've got our attention, we came here and did all these special things for you, meaning me. What do you want? Oh, shit. I'm so sorry. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so. Next time, if there is a next time, I will be much better prepared. I will understand. Do I really need to conjure them? Do I really need to have a conversation with them unless I have a specific question or enlightenment or something? The answer is no. The rest of the answers are just in the universe. If I listen to my spirit guide and I allow the quantum to speak to me on the subjects I wish to have information. Now, going and speaking with these orb beings and taking the pictures and all, that was an enlightening experience, let me tell you. And I learned a lot from it because I'm relating it to you now. So was it all in vain? Was it disrespectful? I went through all the right channels. They told me where to go and what to do. They told me how to take the pictures and how to do it. So was I disrespectful? No. It's my own shortcomings, my own shortfalls that I feel I was very inadequate and very ill prepared for the experience that was there. Oh yeah, there was lots to learn, and it's still kind of coming in subtle ways about this. So hey, it is what it is. God Almighty, 3 hours and 6 minutes, man. Let me go back here and it ain't the ad, huh? Thank you, Mother Nature. I know. How far south? Because Gulf of California may fill in further north. I think it's very much how Mother Nature, how the planet is literally going to shake itself out. I'm seriously worried there's something coming up in Southern California that's going to crack the state along the San Andreas. And I mean, Edgar Cayce said it was going to fall into the ocean. I submit that it's not necessarily going to fall into the ocean as it's going to split because of the fault lines. And it may only be 50 feet, but it's going to disrupt a bunch of stuff. People are going to wish they didn't live there because of all of the gas lines, power lines, all the stuff that it's going to tear apart. But is it going to change Southern Cal? Yeah, it's going to change Northern Cal because of the volcanoes in Northern California and the Cascades and things. Things have got to settle, if you will. For example, their Oroville Dam. Now, I'm not worried about the dam breaking and all these people. Oh, it's leaking, all this other stuff. Oh, it's going to overtop. Oh, that's bananas. They fill it up because it's summertime, and they save it for the farmers downstream. So they want to fill the dam up to the top as much as they can get it. So they save it for the summertime for irrigation and electricity. All these people, yeah. But the valley that that river goes down is only 200 feet. Some places, I have a higher elevation where I currently sit than the people in California in that valley. They're actually closer to sea level than I am here in South Georgia. So I think about it and I go, Wow. And they've got earthquakes. It wouldn't take much for fluctuation in things to move. That could actually flood back versus sink, but combination of things. But they're not really that far above sea level. Now, a lot of mountains around it, but them folks in the valley that are closer to the sea level, that could get flooded, and it's a huge area. Does that mean California is going into the ocean? Well, there are things that are already there. It wouldn't take much if Mother Earth does her shaking and shaking for these places to have water. Just saying. And there's evidence that it has happened in the past. So that's the other, just saying. So there's reports if the ground's sinking in some spots. Oh, yeah, the ground is sinking. Because people want to say that the earth is constricting and this one's going under here. If there are holes opening up, what does that mean? Compression or expansion? If it's compressed, a hole it can't open up. If the earth is expanding, holes open up all over the place. Does that what theory does that support? Doesn't take an idiot to figure out if you take a clump of dirt and hold it together real tight, it stays together like a snowball. But if you don't pack it very much or whatever, it's going to break apart and it's going to be crappy. Crappy snowball, for those of us who have ever made a snowball. But to the point, so Mother Earth's kind of sort of the same way. But she's expanding, all this contraction crap is just nonsense. Cracks are opening up everywhere, If a crack opens up, is it this? Is something sliding under the other? If a crack opens up, by default, it can't. If this is going there and then the crack ain't going to appear. Because then that makes your theories wrong. So you can't disavow your theory, because then you'd have to explain why there's a crack, because the crack says expanding Earth, and defunks all their previous statements about the Earth and all the subduction zone crap. Now there is a lot of information about the craton and the plates. The plates are moving, but not like they think. Not like they think. They're using erroneous information. There are reports, okay, if it ain't the ad, yeah. Yes, and there are fissures opening up as well. Absolutely. Cherry says, and the La Brea tar pits have started pushing up onto the street. Exactly. A couple of years ago in the summertime, and it wasn't because of the heat from the sun, but, the parking lot was melting. There was a time during wintertime, and Mary Greeley knew. She keeps up with that. She lives up in that area. And, but the thing is, in the wintertime, the snow melts on the pavement. 2 feet over here, it's this high. But underneath and around over here, there's no snow. What? Doesn't that mean that the ground's really warm? Tires were sinking into the asphalt. They've closed certain roads in Yellowstone at different periods of time because of the heat from the ground. So, pay attention. I know you all are paying attention, but some of these people aren't. Yeah, you heard about the one that was about 2 miles long and 50 to 100 foot wide. And there have been several. There's South America, over in Turkey. I think there was one in Greece that kind of opened up. There's been that one down in Arizona and down in the desert that went for a long way. There are cracks opening up all over the place. So yes. Sherry says, I'm going to meditate more. That's how I do the spiritual guidance. I do. Yep. Try out binaural beats. It will help, Sherry. Really? I've heard about that. Mind over matter. Yep. I was going to say we are actually almost under sea level. Yeah, how about that? Who's in Germany? I had friends in Germany. Anyway. Yeah, been here about 3 hours. Yep. Oh, Amanda, hi from Germany. It's always a pleasure to listen. Thank you, Amanda. That's what I got. Um, I'm here. I'm nervous, to be honest. I can feel the earth unsettled. Yeah, I can feel it here in South Georgia. It's the way my house sits. I can feel a truck go by up on the road that's a football field away or more, and it literally rumbles in here, and it sounds like it's in my front yard, and it's not. But I can feel other tremors and things the way my house is designed. It's weird, the acoustics in my house and the earth. Um, yep, the ground is splitting, fires from the magma. Yep, originally from Maryland. Yep, I got it. Thank you, Mother Nature. I caught up. Yep, transcending, absolutely. Thank you, Mother Nature. Nuclear power plant in Hanover, Washington has a wildfire breakout near it after a quake the day before. Yeah, and remember, not too long ago, Hanover had a really weird split, and they had a containment thing. And they sent people in, and it was all weird, and they covered things up. And yeah, that happened a year or so ago, but I think it's happening again. Yep. So that huge one in Africa as well. Yep. Well, I changed my name on YouTube so you can pronounce it. Amanda, that's cute. Hi, Quartz, always. Um, Paul Newcastle, hi. You're in northeast of England. I've got a friend of mine from England, but I can't remember where she was from. But Paul, blessings to all of you. And after 3 hours and 15 minutes, and having this being my second uh, live stream for the day, I'm a little on the horse side. I'm out of coffee, and I've been wanting to smoke that cigarette for the last 3 hours and 15 minutes. So, but I want to say thank you all from where you are, Paul, Quartz, as always, Amanda in Germany, um, Cherry, and Mother Nature. I think you're out in California, right? Yeah, yeah, we've already. I'm just listening um, in the corner. Well, oh, Marie, yeah, good to see you hanging out. Yeah, I'm so glad. I was just wondering. I was thinking pizza the other day, and I was like, I'm gonna go see a friend of mine and she pizza. And I said, speaking of pizza, I wonder how Marie is doing. But thanks for putting that in there. Remember the pizza thing? Just saying. Um, how wonderful, David. I thank you. I can listen to you all day. I'm getting hoarse and I need something to drink, but I do have some other subjects that I think are important. And it's all about, remember, you can ascend a tree, but it's better to transcend into other realities and to transcend. So kind of, correct other people and go, you can ascend a tree, but wouldn't you rather transcend into the fourth dimension? Wouldn't you rather expand your being rather than ascend a tree? I mean, just put it to them politely, but we need to change folks' perception, because if they think they're ascending, then they got the wrong idea of what it's going to be. But if we start training folks now, listen, this is a transition. We're going to be experiencing with our bodies, our minds, our ears, our eyes. We're going to see spirits. Trees are going to talk to us. It's not just going up, it's all of these things. So let's get folks comfortable with the correct terminology, which explains more to what's actually happening rather than I'm going up the ladder. You know what I mean? I know you all understand, but I'm getting this message. It's really important that we use the right terminology so that we all understand what we mean versus I'm ascending, I'm climbing a tree versus I'm transcending and moving into the fourth dimension. Just saying. My love to all of you. I know that you get what I mean, but it's important that we spread this around calmly, coolly, but we can change their minds of how they're thinking about this. Transition, transformation, not ascension. It's not, but and we can have rapture moments anytime in our life. If you've ever had good sex, that's a rapture moment. Just saying, you know. So people, there's ways of having rapture moments, and meditation and other things. But the idea that we're only going to get raptured once, that don't fit into my paradigm, because if to be raptured is like one event. When you transcend, it's all of it. It's you're moving. There's so much more in it than just going rapture or ascension. So, but anyway, I see you laugh your ass off. Yeah. A need, not want. I needed that laugh. Thank you. Absolutely. I try to bring laughter. So, just cook something. I can't see. Changing laptops. All right. Blessings, you all. Have a great day. Have a great week. Remember, it's going to be chaotic out there. Remember, the chaos is like an orchestra. Every single instrument in an orchestra sounds strange on their own. But when the music harmonizes, when the chaos of the orchestra gets together, the harmony is what you hear. It's the broader picture, and it's the orchestra. Remember, the chaos is like that. Don't focus on what there's music in the chaos. Keep an eye out. Be nice, be loving. Don't forget to, I need that laugh. Yes, Paul, thank you from UK, Germany, Amanda, Marie, as always, from down under. Be safe, be safe, be safe, and as always, accept and receive the blessings and the knowledge and the healing from the universe. Yes, sir, make music now. Appreciate the silence as well. Absolutely. Blessings, everybody, and until next time, keep it between the ditches, as we say down here in South Georgia. These clay roads are bad in a storm, so be safe. Till next time. Adios, my friends.